Yeah, we're off. Hi, guys. Come on. Man. Okay, I'm going to have to reboot the TV. Hang on, guys. Hang on, guys. That's Rosa. Now I can reboot. Hi, Di. Just getting this going. Had to reboot it. Yeehaw. Finally, we're off.
And I wanted to talk with you about China. Good evening, friends. Stephen Bernard here with Israeli News Live, and I have on Pastor Anthony this evening. Pastor Anthony, thank you for joining me. It is, of course, a pleasure to have you on, and I always appreciate,
Hi, Diane.
especially when we do these things together, because you really bundle of information. And I wanted to talk with you about China. What's going on? What's China really up to? Things like that. If you would first share with people how they can follow the work that you do, we'll put that in the description below for you guys as well. Go ahead.
All right. Well, as always, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to come on your channel and to be able to take time to speak to you and to your audience here. So we're always grateful when we can come on and be a part of what you guys are doing here at Israeli News Live. And yeah, you guys can find me. We're on YouTube, Daily Excellence. We have our main channel here. We have a backup channel called.
And Diane, meanwhile, you and I haven't even caught the cold during COVID.
studios. We feature a lot of mics from around the world's content there. We're also available on Rumble and Patreon. Same name, Daily Excellence. We broadcast live on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock with I'm trying to remember what I do. Oh yeah, Tuesday. It's Tuesday Night Live with myself, and we go over current events, space weather, earthquakes, things like that. And then we broadcast on Wednesday evenings as well with a segment called Pastor Talk. That's where me and my wife would get on and we do devotionals with everyone. Kind of a good family night. Pray for everyone online, which we've seen a lot of great testimonies from those prayer, a lot of answered prayer. We've seen people get healings. We had one person who was on the brink of death. We prayed for them that night. The next day they went home. I mean, stuff like that. So God definitely answering prayers on that segment. And then, we do special broadcasts with, various channels, and of course, you've been a part of several of those broadcasts. And then, of course, what we seem to be famous for is, the work that we do with Mike from Council of Time and his permission to allow us to broadcast things on YouTube. We're always grateful for the ministry that Council of Time does and being able to do that. So we're kind of into everything, it seems like.
Well, I tell you, Council of Time, isn't that Mike from Around the World's channel? I'm pretty sure it is.
What, Anthony, and those that are listening, you can look in the link below there. You'll be able to get all that information that Anthony just shared with you. Maybe before we get into the issue about China, can we, if you want to take and give people a little bit of update, we mentioned BP Earthwatch. Jesse was in your chat room just recently, and I don't know if he joined on with you or if he's going to join on with you, talking about the grand solar minimum. If you want to talk a little bit about that, bring us up to speed on what you know on those issues there. I've kind of been out of the loop in that area. I shouldn't be, because I know that there's very serious things going on. I know one of the latest updates I had gotten, and I actually looked into this because I heard that Mike was talking about, I think in Paul's meeting that he was doing online, was going to give some time frames of being able to see the binary system coming up this year. Mm-hmm. And other than being told that there are some very significant things coming up this year, on the end that I have here, I still was not giving any specific dates, just saying that there are some very significant things that we can anticipate. So share with me what your knowledge is on that right now.
Yeah, BP Earthwatch, he was in the channel, and I just invited him on, and I think he did reply back to me by email, and so I've sent him what I would like to discuss with him. So I'm still waiting on a reply, but it's looking like we're probably going to do a video together on the grand solar minimum. To be honest, I haven't done too much research with that as of late, but I do know that supposedly, and this is why I'm asking BP to come on, from what I understand, leading to the grand solar minimum, which minimum being lack of sun activity, each cycle was supposed to be diminishing. Cycle 23 was diminishing. Cycle 24 was diminishing. Now we're in cycle 25, and it's not diminishing as people have suspected it would. And part of that is, from what Mike from COT would say, that's due to the effects of Planet X and the different system coming in. Kind of messing with our sun and making it more active than it should be. The idea behind that grand solar minimum, so to speak, is to, with a lack of activity from the sun, we get a higher rays, gamma rays here on the Earth, higher, what's the word I'm looking for? Not infrared, we get higher radiation. Of course, those things, especially the gamma rays, tend to breed more in the cloud coverage. Volcanic activity begins to explode a lot more. Earthquake activity tends to pick up. And this is generally because the Earth begins cooling, and some speculate that because we get more ice buildup, which puts more pressure on the poles. This is my kind of a crash course into that. But I've heard conflicting reports to this because of what we're going through and the effects of Planet X, that we may not actually experience our cycle, because these things run in cycles. Everyone knows the sun revolves in an 11-year cycle, but then there's a 24-year cycle, there's a 1,000-year cycle, there's I think a 2,500-year cycle. And so we're kind of, Planet X, from what I understand, is messing up our cycle period right now. And so I don't quite understand the fullness of it all. I don't know if once we get out of cycle 25, because we haven't even hit the max yet, and we're breaking records right now. So I don't know, what cycle 26 is going to look like. I don't know what the off period is going to look like to this, or if we even get an off period with, Planet X lurking around. So I'm like you, I got a lot of questions myself concerning this, because what I did know and what I thought I knew has actually kind of, in some ways, gotten erased, so to speak. So I don't know if that really answers your question or is helping you out any.
What do you know, Anthony, about, where they were reporting back earlier here in December about this massive hole in the sun, coronal hole in the sun? There were, we've seen the images of that, where it's like, I forget how many Jupiters could fit in this hole. It was so massive. And
it was an insane
what
number.
do you know about that?
Yeah, it was really interesting because I think it followed on the heels of a pretty significant explosion on the sun that did hit Earth and caused some shortwave outages and earthquakes and things like that. It was like there was a mass ejection just before that hole opened up, and so I don't really know exactly how that got there. I can only speculate that was probably what was left once there was that mass ejection from the sun, once that filament had left. The idea is that when we see these CMEs and these flares come off the sun, some of it is supposed to retract back in to the sun, so we don't always see the full brunt of it leaving. But on this one, particularly the full brunt, the filament did separate from the sun and did not come back on itself, which is what left that massive hole that we saw. And of course, because of that hole, there was a lot of energy that flew in our direction. And of course, we had auroras both in the northern and some southern hemisphere showing up in places that don't normally get them, and so that's pretty much about the extent of what I know concerning that.
I was thinking because there was a German scientist that had said to me, and this has been more than a year ago. He said there's going to come a time, scientifically speaking, where the sun will stop shining for a period of time, and I remember asking him, I said, are you serious that like the sun would stop shining? How could that even possibly be?
Mm-hmm.
And he was explaining to me that the sun goes through cycles, and he said there comes a time where the sun literally, it's like it's regrouping itself. And he said they anticipate this, that this will happen, that he said it won't be like a total zero sunlight, but it'll go extremely dim because it's re-energizing itself for its next long journey of burning or whatever the case may be. And of course, I always just kind of pass that off as being really about the dumbest thing I ever heard from a scientist, although I greatly respect the scientist. But then, you see this, they show the images of the sun in this massive, massive hole. 60 Earths could fit in this hole. That's how big it is.
Wow.
And clearly, a huge gaping portion of the sun just gone. I'm like, is this what happens? Is this, the type stuff that he's talking about? I mean, granted, not only is it a hole, but there's nothing burning in that hole. So
it could be the, I know that Mike has talked about, with the introduction of these new planetary system coming in, the photons being redirected, which would move the light away from Earth into a different direction, which would bring us a period of darkness, but we would still receive, we would still receive the radiation that would give us the heat. I guess forgot what it was called.
Wow.
But, I'm not saying that's what happened here at all.
Diane, that was nuts. If that's true, that was nuts. That nanotechnology, they use that in the Stargate series. They call them replicators.
But, as you talk about that, scientist is referring to it sun for a period of time. That's what kind of jogged that in my mind as you were speaking.
Okay, that would make sense then, and I think that would probably line up more with what Harold had said to me. That it, from the way Mike is describing that would be the reason why we would not. Because he told me, he said, you're going to have several days where there'll be no light. Mm-hmm. And he said, and when he talks, he talks like a scientist. He's just very calm, very collective, but everything is very scientific and normally words that are like, way over my head. It's like a kindergartner trying to talk to a college student. There's just no way for me to keep up with it. So, all right, we will move out of this arena there because, like you said, Anthony, you and I we're not up to speed on this. Like a lot of these other guys are.
But, I'm hoping to beat the Earthwatch will get me up to speed. That's what I'm trying to get.
There you go. Yeah, Jesse is normally up to speed too. He really is. Jesse. I really tremendously appreciate Jesse. I appreciate the work that he does. He's just very sound. He just tells you just like it is. Doesn't beat around the bush. Amazing guy. I really appreciate Jesse a lot. All right, let's get into this then. China. And
yeah, there's more to that tunnel than trying to get to a ritual bath area, I think, Diane.
This is the big issue going on right now. I want to say it was about 2 years ago. I'm just guesstimating at this point right now. Before we ever heard the first word on the news about China taking Taiwan down, I was dealing with a meeting with some friends in Washington, and they told me then that China was going down. That China was going to take Taiwan down. That it would be something that would be in the near future. At that time, we really were anticipating within a year's time. Mm-hmm. That time came and went, but even before it came and went, I was getting updates about they're pushing it back. And the strange thing is, our government always knew that it wasn't yet. It's going to be a little further back, a little further back. Well, that's because the Biden administration has been accused of being involved in that process. Biden had even met with the CEOs of the corporations in Taiwan, gave them, quote unquote, 2 years to get your assets out of Taiwan because we're going to lose Taiwan.
Yeah.
I had reports from friends in Kansas, big businesses there that knew very well that was true. They were able to confirm it. They had companies coming from Taiwan that were setting up our operation back here in the U.S. I was told that China would not only take down Taiwan, but China would also challenge our hegemony of the entire Pacific region, and that they would be going after the Philippines shortly thereafter Taiwan. And then I got the report just recently that in order to prevent Trump from ever getting back in office, they're going to make sure that we get into some kind of conflict with Taiwan, and that Taiwan, before the election, China before the election no, I'm sorry, I need to correct that. I think I said we're going to get in conflict with Taiwan. No, we're getting in conflict with China over Taiwan.
Yeah.
That is anticipated to take place before the election. And it is anticipated that China will go after Taiwan, not only Taiwan now, but Indonesia as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of crazy things are going on, and I wanted to get any perspective that you may have on this as well, Anthony, to share with us what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I got a few thoughts on this. I've always said that from the beginning when this went out, that I didn't think when China takes Taiwan, because we know they're going to. And if you don't believe us, ask Hong Kong, okay? Because China took Hong Kong and we didn't do anything. We didn't protect the people of Hong Kong. We didn't defend them. We let China take it, okay? And so basically let that serve what happens to the people of Hong Kong and what took place. Let that serve as an example of what's about to take place with Taiwan. They're going to take it without a shot being fired, okay? That's just my personal opinion on this. As you've already stated, these plans have been in motion for the last couple of years. I would almost argue that they've probably been in motion since 2020, in my personal opinion, because, and I want to state that because here in Michigan, there was a chip shortage, which we get those chips to run these vehicles because GM's in our backyard. We got Ford that's in our backyard. We got a lot of automotive industry up here. We had fields and fields of vehicles sitting all over the place because we couldn't get any chips made. Well, those chips come from Japan. They come from Taiwan. And so what happened is our governor, through legislation or whatever, got a factory started here in Michigan, and we're producing our own chips now. Next thing I know, Arizona is doing the exact same thing. Now we got a place in Arizona. We may have other places around the nation, but we're now starting to produce our own stuff over here that we would normally get from Taiwan. All right. And so I think that the infrastructure and the roads have already been laid for some of this stuff to come in fruition for whenever Taiwan or whenever China takes over Taiwan, that we're not put in such a bad imposition to not be able to take care of ourselves. It's like we're preparing for it. And I remember Anthony Blinken coming out and stating that, that should something happen, that basically we're not going in. We're not putting soldiers out there, and I remember Anthony Blinken coming out and saying that. And so, our administration's pretty much tied with Japan. The one thing that I did find that was kind of interesting, and this is the kind of latest news, we haven't seen a whole lot of involvement with the United States getting, with putting any real pushback against China concerning Taiwan. I mean, we've ran some drills, we've saved face, that kind of thing. But when this issue with the Philippines happened, where China was trying to take over one of their ships had one of the main military or government officials on there, we saw some pushback from the U.S. government on this one, some pretty strong pushback, actually. And matter of fact, it was almost as if they were holding China to the fire by their ankles, which was pretty interesting to see that kind of reaction come from the Philippines, but not come from Taiwan. So the question that I would probably throw back in your direction is, what's so special about the Philippines that's not as special about Taiwan?
That's a good question, is why the Philippines? Because Taiwan, we know why. Taiwan is the economic powerhouse, the central, it's what China needs for its economy to flourish, is to get a hold of Taiwan, because all these industries that have been created in Taiwan by the United States, it's why the Chinese are wanting to go after Taiwan. But the Philippines, I really do not know, other than China gaining control. That's what I was always told, that China, their purpose for gaining control of these areas is because they would become the new global superpower. And we see more and more too, Xi Jinping is becoming a statesman of sorts. He's like a U.S. president would. He's becoming more expected to be involved in negotiations and settling disputes. They offered to negotiate the Ukrainian crisis between Russia and Ukraine, or really NATO as far as that goes. And we're seeing too more diplomatic moves. Like in the case, oddly enough, the Chinese have worked with the Taliban more recently with the Silk Road Initiative, wanting to include them in their ancient Silk Road, claiming that the Taliban or Afghanistan used to be part of that actual road itself. And so, and at the same time, we have Italy starting to pull out of that. So it's kind of odd as we look at this to see, typically some of the countries that would be considered quote unquote terrorist countries that are becoming more and more part of this new economic system, while the existing, what we would consider to be the Western type nations, such as Italy, suddenly backing out of these new economic system that China has been building. So, you kind of can't but wonder what's really going on behind the scenes, and of course with China's taking over those areas, the next thing is going to be the Middle East. That's going to be another place that they're going to be challenging the hegemony of the United States.
Diane, our government got a free trade agreement with China as well, but it was the Republican side, not the Democrats. We call the Republicans liberals. So it was the liberal side that done the Free Trade Act, which is very unusual.
Is in the Middle East. There are troops fighting in Iraq. You'll have them in Iran. You're going to have them in Syria. And back 2 years ago, I was being told at that time that China was already inside of Syria. They were already having skirmishes in Iraq. They were practicing getting their forces prepared. Do you have any information on any of these things?
Not so much on China and the Middle East. Like you, I've heard for several years that they've been over there. They really have infiltrated Africa as well. They've been doing a lot of economical reforms and things like that in Africa, and trying to bring those nations that are like third world nations to at least a second world rating. We've seen a lot of resources going from China into Africa on that one, as well as the Middle East. The only thing that I can kind of speculate on two different fronts from two different perspectives, and this is just me talking, is one, it's kind of if you think about how China's doing this, it's really a playbook from the United States. Because when the United States was inserting its power, that's exactly the same thing we did. We went to every country in the Middle East. We went and set up shop in Africa. We went and went to every corner of the world, because that's what you do if you're the superpower. You're everywhere. You're kind of the world's police, so to speak. And we see, as we're pulling out, we're leaving vacuums everywhere we go. China's coming in, and they're filling those voids. The second perspective on this, and I'm just throwing this out there just to see what bites, is that you have to understand that China's got a lot invested in the United States. And the Chinese know that the United States has got some real enemies, especially in the Middle East, that would love nothing more than to watch us go boom, okay? And that's not in the best interest of China. Because China, like a good investor, wants to recoup their investments. Okay, so you can't really recoup a investment if
China will just take the country. Let's face it.
That investment's completely destroyed. So what better way to make sure that investment stays intact than to go out and begin to, conquer other places, or begin to make sure that these people stay put. that they mind their business, they stay in their lane and not get involved in what China's essentially trying to do. There's that particular aspect of all of this as well, getting involved in the Middle East, trying to broker some peace deals here and there. Really, it's just kind of keeping the animals at bay, so to speak, so that they don't mess up whatever China's got planned for us here in the U.S.
Well, it does seem that China has plenty planned here for the United States. And the sad thing is the Biden administration on multiple occasions has been accused of being complicit with China in some of those plans. And that includes whether we go into anarchy in this nation, civil war, civil unrest, whatever you want to call it. And then turns out that at the end of the day, the Chinese will come in to help the U.S. government police the people here and bring things under control. I'm very concerned about those actions there. And quite frankly, as I watch the rhetoric that's going on, even as the election is getting closer and closer, the fears that I see, and I'm watching the media like MSNBC,
It's 2 weeks old.
I may not agree with everything politically that goes on in the Republican Party by no means, but at the same time, I'm watching a news organization that has become so biased in their reporting. Instead of reporting objectively, everything is just one-sided. And even if you even say something like that here on YouTube's platform, you'll be shut down.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even say anything about what happened, we'll say 4 years ago. And now I'm watching free speech be totally silenced. As even Giuliani, as he was, the court found him, liable for paying out this massive defamation fine for these 2 election workers that were working at the polls in Georgia. And of course, all he does is afterwards he makes a statement about it, claiming that he has more evidence and things, and that it wasn't the end, and that he had told the truth. I don't know the answers to all of that, but it's interesting then how that he gets hit with another lawsuit.
Right.
And this time they're trying to push in other words, you're not even allowed to speak. I guess my concern is I see and I know I'm kind of going a little bit away from China, which is, I guess, okay in this regards here, but it's at the same time, it's still dealing with China because, like I said, China is going to be the police force of this nation when we go into anarchy in this country. But I see that coming, and I see them setting up the nation right now for that by causing such a division and causing all of this obvious bias in the media, and yet they're claiming that independent media and social media, or people on social platforms and stuff, that they're the ones that are all biased. They're all the ones that are spreading false information and lies and things like that. You just can't get any objective reporting anymore. Your thoughts on that, Anthony?
Well, I was going to say that, and this is breaking news. This just happened right before you and I got on here to do this. But Trump is disqualified from the 2024 ballot. Colorado Supreme Court rules the clause of the 14th Amendment applies. So the court then declares Trump ineligible for presidency under the U.S. Constitution insurrection clause. He's removed from the state's 2024 presidential primary ballot. So officially, if you live in Colorado, you will not be allowed to vote for Donald Trump in this coming election.
And the question will be how many more states will follow suit.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that Colorado has set a precedent in doing that, and there will no doubt be other states that will follow suit as well. You know, and the question would be, would the Supreme Court step in? And would they, if they step in, will they overrule the state of Colorado? Or will they go in favor? Will they abstain?
Right.
And that would be like the beginning, what you were talking about. You know, if we see this, other states do this, and he gets removed. You know, I mean, you only need a handful of states to actually do this to make it impossible for him to win. You know, and
Exactly.
if it happens, you know, you've got a very large, you know, mega base that I would suspect probably not going to sit idly by this time around. You know, and so then that kind of, you know, cycles back around to what you were just talking about, you know, with civil unrest, anarchy, and all that other, you know, all those other things where we would need foreign powers to come in and, you know, take care of that. Because I mean, our military is so stretched out there, you know, they're not going to bring those guys back home for this.
And they're not legally allowed to bring back the military of the United States military on its own soil against its own citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard that's why Biden administration would look to an outside source, and China has been chosen to be that outside source. Granted, this country is the most armed country in the world, especially for private citizens. And the whole objective of a new world order is to disarm the world, disarm this nation. By the way, that's one reason, and a lot of people don't realize it with Israel, that's one reason why you see when they were handing out weapons to the people in the West Bank, Israelis don't even realize they're being played. You know, I heard Mike from around the world make the comment not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago maybe, that Israel will end up being disarmed. Mm-hmm. And I can certainly see that, but it's going to happen to America as well. Mm-hmm. And in order to disarm a nation, you have to create the right scenario to make it look like you've got to justify that disarming. And at the same time, as they're disarming, whether it be Israel or the United States, in either case, I also believe that it plays into the New World Order agenda. It will play into a what I would call a beast kingdom agenda. When I say that, what I'm talking about is that clearly when Christ returns, we will see Scripture fulfilled. They beat their swords into plowshares. We see that peace that will reign on the earth. But if it's not here yet and Christ has not come, and you want to bring a false Messiah or somebody who you think is the Messiah, regardless of where or how that comes into play, you still have to then manufacture events to fit the narrative that you want to portray to the world. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, if people don't accept that Jesus Christ was truly the Messiah that was sent, then there's going to have to be someone that's going to project that to the world that indeed, you know, if their version of the Messiah is here, they've also got to have peace is being brought to the world. And with peace comes to disarming of the nations. And so I feel like that's also something else that's playing into this. And I don't think people realize that they're being played.
Yeah, it's going to be I don't know how they're going to pull that off, especially here in the United States. You know, as you've already stated, you know, we're so heavily armed as private citizens. You know, to actively go from home to home, to even pool, to, you know, confiscate, you know, our Second Amendment rights, so to speak, would be one daunting task. I mean, you don't even have enough military to pull something like that off. You know, in the United States, you know, even if you use, and I've heard of the technology that they would use, you know, using certain satellites, drones that can identify the type of metals and things like that. That would identify as, you know, weaponry, things like that. They would be able to identify homes that have this. But even still, you know, even if you identify it, you get a nice database that shows every address in America that has it. You still got to approach that person to get it out, you know. And I just, you know, that's going to be without, you know, going any further in that. That's just going to be quite the task.
It would definitely be a task, and it would probably really take a very drastic situation to happen. And that's my concern as I'm watching the events happening, and of course, watching the election that would be coming up, what the potential risks are that are involved. And as you bring out this new news from Colorado, already saying that, okay, now Trump's not going to be on a ballot, you know, it does not look good at all. I can just, you know, it's almost like the handwriting's on the wall. You know where this is headed to.
Yeah.
I sat in an attorney's office recently, and we got on this very subject, and even the subject of the people that are in the movement where they're renouncing their citizenship, becoming sovereign citizens. We were discussing this, and you know, and the attorney said, you know, we do live in a you know, America is a nation that is based on a voluntary status. We choose, we volunteer to elect our officials, to let them choose the laws. We go by those laws. If we break those laws, we are basically volunteering to, every aspect is a voluntary situation. He says, now, as long as the government has enough authority and enough power, if somebody tries to go against that, even though it's a voluntary system, they'll just crush them down and make sure that they stay in line.
Yeah.
He said, but now the sovereign citizen movement has grown to such a power in the
Hey,
United
boss, good to
States,
see you,
not
mate.
only in numbers, but in economics, etc. He said that they're a power to be reckoned with. And he said, quite frankly, and he brought up the issue with Trump. He says, and he said, I think he was very supportive of Trump his first time around. He said, but I'm a little bit more nervous this time. He said, because I realize that this could end up turning into a very bad situation. He said, for example, he said, you know, he said, they're obviously they're out to try to get him. And he said, and so if he chooses that he's not going to go along with that system, and he's not going to be arrested, he's not going to allow them to take him if he is found to some point, let's say guilty of something where they would say, okay, it was a crime, you're going to jail. He said, not only that, he's got the support of the American people in such numbers that are armed. He said, it will literally rip this country apart. And when he said that, I realized what he said and what he meant by all these things. But you know, Anthony, I could not help but believe this is playing in the very hands of what the globalists are wanting in the first place. Their whole objective has been to break this country up. I think I was told at one point, it was 5 regions, maybe 4, and they were going to have what they call super governors.
I was just getting ready to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're headed. Talk a little bit about that, Anthony. And we'll kind of
you know, you talk about the globalists, and I wanted to kind of flip the coin on this because, you know, just as much.
Diane, I've never heard of Crow House. I don't even know what it is.
They don't want Trump in, but I can guarantee you Biden's not going to be in either. And matter of fact, his reluctancy to bow out and to not run has caused him problems. You know, the first warning was all these dossiers and documents that came up. You know, they found in his house and his Corvette and in the White House and all this other stuff. And that didn't deter him or anything like that. But now, just I think it was last night, somebody hit his car. You know, they hit his motorcade and he was fine. And you know, he wasn't injured or anything. And you know, somebody was like, "Oh well, you know, it must have."
I thought you meant like a takeaway bar or something, Di. I didn't. I don't know, Crowhouse.
Just been a fluke thing, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't think that's a fluke thing. I'm Italian, and I know how that runs. And I said that wasn't a fluke thing; that was a warning. And I think just as much as they're trying to get rid of one candidate, they're trying to get rid of another one too. One they're trying to lock up, and the other one, it looks like what it looks like based on last night's events. I won't go any further than that, but I can see.
Is he still around, Diane? Can you see if he's still around, please?
Either event, however it shakes down, it's going to cause an issue because Trump goes out, his supporters come out, they're going to rampage. The other person goes out, they're going to rampage and blame it on the Trump supporters. Okay, so it's really a catch-22. It's a catch-22 situation, double-edged sword type scenario that we're looking at. And honestly, I don't see a way out of this. I just don't, unless somehow, some miraculous way, it would have to be a God thing to intervene that we actually make it to the presidential selection this year, and they just happen to bring a completely different candidate in, and just dismiss both of them through, using voting machines or whatever. I don't know. But other than that,
may be the only solution, Anthony, is to literally disqualify both of them as candidates.
Yeah, because I just don't see, if they don't, I just don't see a way out of this. And I think the government, those who are those who are still left that semi care for the country still, I think they're realizing that too. Like, we're in a real big mess here, and it's a very interesting thing. But you're right, it is what the globalists want. They do want this country to fall. They want us to split up, and that's what I was just getting ready to say. We do know of a plan to split the nation up. I believe it is 5 different sectors. Each sector would be governed with its own capital and its own government. It would be instead of the United States of America, it would be just the United States, or United Nations, or some along those lines, or United America. It would be a different name than what we're used to, because you're going to go from 50 states to 5 sectors, so to speak. They're going to have to change the name. It's even speculated, and a lot of what I'm saying here is on the plane of speculation.
Thank you, Vas. That was very nice of you. Thank you, mate.
I don't have facts. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Right.
I don't have facts to back any of this stuff up. Okay, so don't run with it and say, oh, this is 100% because Anthony said it. No. So, but it is speculated that everybody might get a piece of the pie. All right. Some sectors may be liberal. So if you feel that way, want to live that way, that's your spot. Some may be conservative. If you want to live that way and you feel that way, then that's your spot. There is that idea of just splitting everybody. And if you feel this way, you're going here. And if you feel this way and believe that, you're going here. And the two shall never mingle.
Meanwhile, while we go to the FEMA camps,
there is that theory out there as well.
And that can be concerning, because what if you don't fall in either one of the camps? Where do you go?
I guess you gotta choose your poison, man. I don't know.
Right? Exactly. I mean, that's another big concern as well. So anyway, listen, Anthony, we appreciate you so much coming on tonight and discussing these issues.
Welcome to the Prophecy Club. If you missed
Lord, we're going to pray on behalf of Shawnee's husband. He's got something going wrong with his legs. Please comfort him and go in and fix whatever's wrong with his legs. Please, Lord. Shawnee's one of your daughters, so I assume her husband's one of your sons. So please do that, Lord. It's a righteous prayer. Please step in and help Shawnee's husband with whatever health problems he's having with his leg. Amen.
Part of this, you're going to miss a lot. I've got 3 very important messages to share with you today. And sad to say, they all confirm that there is a storm heading this way. So as a matter of fact, I really probably ought to call this, what is the storm? Is it an internal revolution, massive arrest, dollar devaluation, a UFO disclosure, or all of the above? It might be all of the above. So the first one comes from this pretty little lady called Ahava Sarah Fisher. It's called Rest in War Coming. I looked at her site. She has Henry Gruber on there, and just glancing through, it looked pretty impressive to me. And plus, I think it confirms other things that we've already been told. So she says, in the dream, I was in a large house, and people were off there from all walks of life in the house, meaning America. I understand that it represented America, and suddenly there were invaders in the house that came in. In other words, foreigners, immigrants, illegal aliens coming into our nation through the southern border mostly. Suddenly there were invaders in the house that came in. They were trespassing. They came in with weapons. They were very immature, young, and juvenile. They were delinquents and hooligans with weapons. They loved causing chaos and causing America to run amok. They delighted in the power that had been given them. They're ready to terrorize. Does that sound like what's been coming through our southern border the last 3 years?
Yep.
It does to me. Everybody started fleeing. I understood that I was not to get involved in the physical battle. I just simply understood that I had to be hidden. I think that's very good advice. In other words, when these foreigners that have come into our nation illegally start causing trouble, don't get involved. Just stay out of it. I think that's good wisdom here. I looked for a place to hide. I see a sofa, and below the sofa was a very narrow place. I managed to get in there and hide. I think it's talking about being hid in Christ, okay? I didn't hesitate. I know outside there's commotion and conflict all around, but nobody else can see me. I was surprised at how peaceful and calm it was. I was in a rested state. I was relaxed. This chaos wasn't disturbing me. How many times have we been told this? That God is going to protect us from the storm, those people that are truly in Christ. The fact that everybody seemed to be in an uproar above the sofa, and I felt like it was above ground. In other words, wasn't touching her. That's important now. Then the end of that season for that house to be trespassed finally came. These were placed on the side of me. I wasn't scared. I was impressed that I was in this calm, relaxed state. The moment they began to touch me, chaos ceased. Police arrived. Trespassers were taken away. I went outside the house, and evil was being lined up and handcuffed. Order was being restored. This could be the internal revolution. This could be simply when the new financial system comes out, they cause chaos. Remember, they told, I'm talking about the ruling elite, the Molochs, they told Benjamin Fulford that we've ruled this planet for thousands of years and we'll destroy it rather than give it up. They're talking about mostly our financial system. He goes on to say the season of chaos did not last long, just for a short while. I was so glad that through it, all I had this peace that surpasses all understanding, which comes only from the Lord Jesus. Even though this dream about war came on Christmas Day, it was a treasure because I felt so comfortable and secure during the chaos and war. Okay, so this one came on Christmas Day, and then Leslie's came on January the 7th, as in yesterday, Sunday. Now let's go to this one. This is Leslie's. So during praise and worship, she turns to me and she says, I just saw a vision. So we walked up and she gave the vision to church. This was the text of it. So during praise and worship, she said, I had a vision. It is a vision for America. I saw the sea and the waters were calm. In other words, that's where we are now. But there's a big storm brewing. I saw a boat in the sea, and the sea was just like glass. The sea was like so clear you could see ahead for many miles. And I heard the Lord say, you must hang on. You must brace yourself, because behind the calm is a humongous storm about to hit to disrupt this boat. So there's about to be a storm hit. America, you're on the boat having a good time. The Lord says to brace yourself, to hang on, because you can either be pushed to safety or you're going to go through this mighty storm. Same thing as the other dream said. A mighty storm, people, I'm serious. A mighty storm so strong, you must brace yourself. Are you going to cry out, holy, 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 meaning you turn to Jesus? Who are you going to call on? Where's your faith during this time? You better start building up your faith now, because right now in 2024, the early part of 2024, the atmosphere, the feeling now is just peace and safety. But the atmosphere is about to change. No storm. But it's coming fast. Probably before we can even realize that, it'll be here. But you've got to be watching for it. You've got to be looking ahead, meaning you really need to be sending this out.
Yeah, boss. It's Tricky's passed on. He's up there setting a table for us. It's sort of looking like that. But he did say if he passed on, he's told his daughter to tell us on Skype. So I'm waiting to hear from his daughter if he has passed on.
Your friends, send this to your pastors. Pastors need to know this. They may not receive it, but if the time comes, when it comes to pass, perhaps they'll then begin to turn and listen to this ministry. I don't know how to emphasize how important it is to build up your faith, to strengthen, to hang on, and together to brace yourself, because if you don't, you're going to go through this storm and it will tear you up. God can be here with us through the storm. Do you believe that? Of course, the congregation said, amen. Now, you're going to be saying, wait a minute, this doesn't have anything to do with the other storm. Oh, I think it does. So, Miami News says, perhaps you've heard this, rumors of shadow aliens at Bayside Marketplace go viral after a large fight among teens creates chaos. I'm going to play two videos. The first one is of the Miami News, and they're doing everything they can to say, oh, this is not aliens. This is not aliens, but they show something walking down there, and that's what I want you to see. And then in the second video, this is a guy speaking Spanish, but just ignore that. What I want you to notice is how many police cars there are. And other reports say there were over 50. Other reports say there's over 60 police cars. I don't think if there's a few teenagers fighting, even if they're firing weapons, I don't think there's 50 or 60 police cars goes.
And like I said, guys, they must have drilled for this, for 60 cop cars to show up like they did. They must have already done a drill on this.
For that. So do I think that there's an alien in the videos about to show you? Well, the truth is I don't know, and you don't either. But I'm about to read you something afterwards from Vicky Goforth Parnell that says, the videos now.
No sabemos qué está pasando. Okay, and now to our #1 trending story on CBSMiami.com.
It involves talk of alien sightings at Bayside Marketplace. On New Year's Day, there was a massive police response in downtown Miami. More than 50 young people armed with sticks began fighting. Police say juveniles were also setting off fireworks, causing chaos.
So now people are posting online saying that police weren't there to handle a group of rowdy teens, but rather 8 to 10 feet tall shadowy aliens. Conspiracy theories are saying a big creature could be seen standing in front of the entrance to the shopping area, Bayside. Today, the phrases Miami Mall and...
They're not even hiding now, guys. That's pretty big leap forward, isn't it?
Aliens in Miami have been among the top 10 searches on Twitter's trending tab. Twitter, of course, now called X. And Google News even has several reports questioning the event.
Now, let me back up. Back in 1968, this came out, 2001, A Space Odyssey. This is the storyline. 2001 is the story of evolution. Sometime in the distant past, someone or something nudged evolution by placing a monolith on Earth, presumably elsewhere throughout the universe as well. Evolution then, this is going to tie together in just a second, okay? Then enabled humankind to reach the moon's surface, where yet another monolith is found, one that signals the monolith placers that humankind has evolved that far. Now, mankind, assisted by artificial intelligence, such as HAL, must dare to encounter monolith placers. If successful, the next step in evolution, whatever it is, will be exchanged or achieved. So what's it really saying?
Stargates.
In the movie, it had this big monolith. It was like in the shape of the UN building. It's in the shape of kind of like a domino, all right? Except for it's huge. And it was all through this movie, and it was like, huh? What are they saying? Maybe a dream just given to Vicky Goforth Parnell explains it.
Yeah.
Here's the dream. It was also given, well, over a span of several days, given to her several times, but it started December 25th, just like the other ladies, okay? All of the...
Yeah, Diane, I'm with you. I don't hear anything Justin Trudeau's got to say.
So like in the last week, all right? There before my, by the way, this is edited, but there before my eyes in the sky is a large, massive, leaning wall of metal. In other words, in the shape of like a domino. The part I can see of it is underneath has odd shapes on it, but I can make out the shape of an area that looks like a triangle. It's not moving, kind of like in the movie 2001 Space Odyssey. I kept staring, but it never moved. It's just sitting there, suspended in the sky, kind of like it was in the movie. I think the movie and this are tied together. I dreamed multiple nights. I have been seeing visions of this large metal wall leaning in the sky. I heard a voice from heaven say, "Daughter of mine, take a good look and record what you see." Suddenly, I have my journal and ink pen in my hand. I saw a long, rectangular metal-type wall. It looks like an alloy material from the hidden facilities of the fallen ones, the Dark Lords, who are the angels that fell. That is correct, the voice from heaven replied to me. It has near the top of its rectangular shape what looks like 9 solid white half rings, with 6 on the other end, I will call the bottom. There's shiny silver tubing running in odd shapes near the top. By the way, all of these lights, it's not necessary that you figure out exactly what she's seeing. Essentially, what she's about to tell you is this is an alien spaceship. Hang on, there's more. It's not crazy. We've been telling you this is coming, all right? So there's shiny silver tubing running in odd shapes near the top. There's a large triangle on it with a circle inside it as a seam running down its length. Blinking lights appear in the metal wall with white blinking lights running in straight lines. One horizontally near the wall's top and 2 others running vertically down the middle length of it. The edges of the wall are lighted in alternating red and blue nonstop. Then I heard my lovely Jesus Christ's voice speak from the heavens with great power and authority, but with love too. The time has come for the further deception of your world. The aliens shall come from the sky. I hope you're hearing this. I think she heard from God. I think she heard from God. The aliens shall come from the sky to your world, and many will fear and believe in their existence. You remember the Bible says in the last days, God will send them a strong delusion, so that all those who not come to the knowledge of the truth would believe a lie and be damned? Bingo. We have been talking about this for years. The alien deception is just that, or the alien disclosure is an alien deception, and it's used to turn people away from the truth. Those people had refused to receive Jesus, the blood of Jesus. Now the devil is allowed to trick them, and they'll all be damned. Okay, let's go on. The time has come for the further deception of your world. The aliens shall come from the sky to your world, and many will fear and believe in their existence. You know, I'm going to read that again. The time has come for the further deception of your world. The aliens shall come from the sky to your world. Perhaps, by the way, you've heard that there's supposed to be an alien disclosure, people coming in under oath and testifying to the Congress. They've been talking about it's coming. Okay, so this is not a joke. If you're laughing at this, you're probably going to be eating your words. Deception upon deception has come to your world, and my restrainer removed nothing. Nothing. My restrainer removed nothing shall hold back the flood of evil coming upon your world, nor my judgments. The time for the great reveal, that's what we call the alien disclosure. The time for the great reveal, the revelation of alien life and proof has come. Your leaders shall declare, do not be deceived. They are and shall forever be demons and fallen ones portraying themselves as the various alien life forces. Suddenly, the metal wall, which I now know is a fake alien spaceship. I'm going to read that one again. Suddenly, the metal wall, again in the shape of a domino, suddenly the metal wall, which I now know is a fake alien spaceship, takes and flies away very quickly. I looked around. Surely someone else has seen this massive leaning metal wall of the ship, but I saw no one, except one lone man in the far distance who has his arm pointed to the sky where the ship had once been. Jesus, my love, why didn't anyone else see this massive ship with all its blinking lights, except for this one man? It looked like, and me. I heard my lovely Jesus Christ reply again from the heavens and say, because few are watching. Few are sounding the alarm of what is coming. See, if you talk about aliens or alien craft or anything, the people of rational, people who consider themselves normal people, think you have a hole in your head, think you're crazy. But try to imagine, for just a moment, try to imagine one of these spaceships landing down on the front lawn of the White House or the Supreme Court or the Capitol, or maybe in the front lawn of the Capitol in the city you live in, popping the hatch, saying, here we are. We're here to answer your questions. I think what they'll come out with is all kinds of high technology, things to heal us, give us. Well, remember the Bible says in those days shall men seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them.
Diane, does Florida get tornadoes usually? I know they get hurricanes, but do they get tornadoes?
So there's some kind of like a med bed or some kind of a healing thing that, in the context of what the Bible says there, most everybody on the earth now has eternal life in this sinful body, which I do not want. Matter of fact, I'll tell you that the Lord told me very specifically, do not get in the med bed. It changes your DNA and you will lose your salvation. Okay, so I'm not getting in the med bed. Anyway, so he said, because few are watching, few are sounding the alarm, what is coming, little daughter? You must sound the alarm. More deception is coming in the form of fake alien life forms. I'm going to read that again. More deception is coming in the form of fake alien life forms, and somebody of mine who are living in the world while trying to serve me shall be deceived and swept into the deception and others. I better read that whole thing again. More deception is coming in the form of fake alien life forms, and somebody of mine who are living in the world while trying to serve me shall be deceived and swept into the deception and others. This deception, in other words, there's going to be more deception, because they want to ignore all the warnings of what is occurring and live their lives as if they're going to live their lives unhindered by what has come to your world already. I mean, this is the way a lot of times the attitude of those people that believe that there's going to be a pre-trib rapture, they're not going to see any problem. Jesus is going to come and save them. He's going to suck them into the sky. They don't have to go through any trouble. And they are, I mean, I'm trying to be kind, okay? I'm trying not to offend, but they're just wrong. I don't know the nice way to say it. You know, Dale Carnegie says, never say you're wrong. So I'm breaking a rule of Dale Carnegie here. So I'm trying not to be offensive. I'm just saying I've given you a lot of reasons. I've written a whole book called How Pre-Trib Won that will show you the truth. It answers the question if you just want to read it. But see, a lot of people don't want the truth. They like living in their world of deception. It's true. Let's go on. I haven't got some of the best parts yet. Okay, hang on. This is good. How will they stand to me when they can't stand now? Even before the full depths of deception falls on the earth. In other words, if you can't take the little punches, how are you going to take the big ones? If you can't take it when the devil is trying to trick you in the small ways, what are you going to do when the devil's trying to use the big tricks on you?
Amen.
Warn them, little daughter. I charge you to warn my people and warn of the coming deception of the fake aliens by the fallen angels and demons ruling in your world. I will, Jesus Christ, with your help, your strength, and in your great name. The time is now, the time of Antichrist, for them to arrive. Now, God's time now might not be our time. So it might still be a few more years before the Antichrist arrives, maybe a few more years before the alien disclosure comes out. But don't count on it. Be ready now. Now, next headline. Comes to us from Benjamin Fulford. I think it confirms a lot of this. Now, again, he's not even a Christian. He lives in Japan. He didn't follow Prophecy Club. But yet, a lot of stuff he says is confirmed now. Some of the things he says I disagree with, but that's okay. He says, we're headed for some sort of mega black swan event, possibly this week. Now, what's a black swan event? Well, for many years, they thought there was no such thing as a black swan. And then in like 1671, they found a black swan. So all of a sudden, it surprised the whole world. So a black swan event is when something happens that no one was expecting, and it's a worldwide event, or it's a big event, okay? So he says there are many signs that we're heading for some sort of massive black swan event or set of events that is likely to involve both white hat mass arrest operation. I didn't say that. He said that. Remember, I told you, I wrote it down, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. I heard when I was taking a nap, massive arrests. And that was a time when I was questioned whether there was really going to be massive arrests. And so the Lord confirmed to me, yes, there are massive arrests coming.
Wow. Who's going to do the arrest?
Revolution? I don't know, but it probably is. There are many signs we're headed for some sort of massive black swan event or set of events that is likely to involve both the white hat mass arrest operation and a Khazarian mafia response that will dwarf 9/11. What's he saying? He's saying that he thinks that the massive arrests could start. Do you remember Jason Meekson? I don't know if I do have time, maybe later onto this. He had a dream where
I had no idea he got hit with so many tornadoes, Diane. Wow.
he saw that there were massive arrests and then there was a suitcase nuke. That fits this perfectly. I can't say that's what happened, but that's the most likely guess, in my opinion. All right, let's go on. Let me read that last sentence again. There are many signs we're headed for some sort of massive black swan event or set of events. In other words, some kind of a big surprise that is likely to involve both white hat mass arrest operations and a Khazarian mafia response that will dwarf 9/11. My guess would be probably they shut off the old financial system, they start arresting people, and then the Khazarian mafia sets off suitcase nukes. If I had to guess, that would be my best guess. But again, I don't know for sure. One hint that something is being planned in the form of a full-page advertisement in the New York Times that read, Ocean of Storms. That's the fourth message that says storms. Okay, did you catch it? Ocean of Storms, 11/1/2024, new moon. Now that would be putting all of this located closer to the election, which is sort of what I've actually thought. But in that Leslie and then this other lady and this other person, all I have dreams of visions,
Hey, boy, I can
all in
see
last week, that something sounds like maybe it is a massive arrest. backed up by suitcase nukes. I don't know. I'm just warning. Let's go on. The Q site linked to high-level military intelligence
Come
too
here.
is claiming the first quote, "the world ends," end quote, revelations for that day. What he's trying to do is say it's not just him saying it. There's also some sort of top secret UFO meeting for Congress to be heard around the same time. Are you catching this? The Bible says in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let a thing be established. So we've got 2 witnesses saying a UFO disclosure is on the way. We've known that for a while now. I just did a program, in the last 2 weeks, specifically talking about that. Let's go on. Colonel Douglas McGregor agrees, saying his own extensive contacts tell him that, quote, financial Armageddon is coming. What is that? The death of the dollar, the rise of the new quantum financial system. Financial Armageddon is coming. We're headed for bankruptcy. All of this is going to come together in what I fear will be the perfect storm. That's 4th time we've heard that word, storm. Perfect storm that could really knock this nation to its very foundations. Just like Shane Warren was told, we want our entitlements. The end of something called reversed repurchase agreements also shows some sort of financial black swan event is coming. The RRAs are a device from the feds, started using in 2020 to create the appearance of big U.S. banks are still solvent, when they're really not, okay? The banks are doomed because a staggering 50 million individuals are now defaulting on loan payments, while 67% of the American workers say the cost of living is outpacing wage growth, meaning they aren't making enough to make it. These hints of some sort of major event come as the fake Biden regime in the U.S. is visibly crumbling. President, quote, Joe Biden has had no public meetings since December 22nd, only computer graphic video events. Also, the fake Secretary of Defense, now I do not know this, and I'm not even going to say the name. I can't prove this, has been hospitalized since January 1st, that part we know. Due to complications following a recent elective medical procedure, that part we know. Austin is supposed to be available at a moment's notice because he is in a national security crisis. His second in command is supposed to be able to take over his duties, yet she is on vacation in Puerto Rico. He says, I'm receiving invalid rumors that he is not with us anymore. I'm not going to say his name. Something else is going on behind the curtain. Is this all a smokescreen? The truth is, I don't know, and I don't trust this. See that letter? I don't trust them. I would trust them as far as I could go. So I don't like some of his sources. Let's go on though. This comes as House Republicans begin steps to impeach. As House Republicans begin steps to impeach Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas. Hallelujah! He should have been impeached a long time ago. I might add a whole slew of other people that are near him holding up his arms. Anyway, go on. Over this handling of the border crisis. With his military backing gone, Mayorkas is toast. Another sign something is happening is the Canadian Prime Minister Justin was caught trying to flee to his fatherland of Cuba around the same time that Austin was, quote, hospitalized, according to Canadian intelligence services. The cover story being put out is that Trudeau's aircraft is broken down during a trip to Jamaica. The Khazari Mafia is not going quietly into the night. We are hearing from various sources they are planning some horrific mass terror event. Suitcase nukes? Do I know that? No. Do I suspect that? Yep. Okay, so we know a storm is coming. The only question, is it A, an internal revolution, B, massive arrests, C, dollar devaluation, D, an UFO disclosure, or E, all of the above? My vote would probably be all of the above, though I don't know. But I'm going to say this, brothers and sisters, you want to go to prophecyclubgold.com. Prophecygold.com. Get yourself some gold and silver. Call them and ask them, hey, this is my situation, this is what I got. What do you suggest? Also, you need to get yourself some long-term storage food. josephskitchen.com. Go there. And we know I've got 34 prophecies. 34. I mean, I have more prophecies about suitcase nukes coming than all of the other prophecies combined. 34 prophecies say there's going to be suitcase nukes set off in America. And if you want your car to start, here's a possible solution. You go to empshield.com.
Okay, one more of his.
The Good Guys Big Deal Days are on now. Get $100 off this high-end cooktop. This Bosch dishwasher only $9.99. This Miele dishwasher only $1,249. Plus this Smith cooker only $2,899. Big Deal Days only at the Good Guys.
Okay, when I was first saved, I watched what's his name? TD Jakes, and he told a story, and then I heard him about a month later tell the story, and the story was different. So I knew he was a liar, so I stopped watching him. I'm glad he's getting exposed though, if he is.
Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is censorship, food shortage, and water poison. And I've got a little bit of good news. It seems that the Berkeys have found a few that they can sell. And since we're one of their oldest and probably largest distributors, they called us. And they said, okay, we got 15 Royal Berkeys, but actually they emailed, but before we could call them back, they're already gone. However, we said, yes, we'd love to have 15 Royal Berkeys. So here's the situation. They say that they do not have any extra filters. This is all they have, 15 Royal Berkeys, and it comes with 2 filters. Okay, that's great. That's enough to filter water for family and maybe even a couple of families. They say that the expected ship date is 2 weeks. And they're saying that this is not an order yet. It's a wish list, but they expect to be able to get them to us.
True, Shorty. True.
We'll start shipping them in a couple of weeks. They're $450 plus whatever the shipping is, and we're not taking any online orders. If you want one, the only way to get it is to call us, 785-266-1112, and make certain that we've still got this order. She can tell you all of the answers. Anyway, 785-266-1112 if you'd like to get a Royal Berkey. All right. First, we'll start with censorship. Now, this comes from the dream that I've already read a couple of times from Dana Coverstone, December 2023. And I'm only going to read just the one paragraph. He said,
this Dana Coverstone, he gets a lot of, he has a lot of dreams and that. He gets a lot of passes backing him up. So I might look into him tomorrow and do a stream just on him.
that censorship will become the standard, and the attempt to silence the voices speaking truth will come to naught only as the faithful pray and speak the truth themselves. And it specifically said that is coming this year, 2024. Now, I can tell you that, I guess maybe I'll say the name. Like, for example, we got on TikTok and we started getting thousands of views and they deleted the video. And then we put on a different video. They deleted the video. And we've been actually battling them for 2 or 3 months. And finally, they just would delete the whole channel. If we would open up another channel, they would delete the whole channel. And so we can't get on TikTok. And I'm pretty sure that some of the others, I probably shouldn't mention the names, One starts with an F. We have been at about 60,000 subscribers for, I don't know, 3 or 4
Yep.
years. Can't seem to get any more. They dribble in like nothing. And then, of course,
Yeah, Vast, I know all about the gay mafia. They're all in on it. They're all. Justin Bieber got used by him as well. Usher's part of it.
the one that starts with Y totally deleted our channel. Totally. We had almost 100,000 subscribers. They totally deleted it. And no redress of grievances, no phone call, no, hey, you got to change this, nothing. And we spent $50,000 in advertising, boosting up the program where the channel is just boom, gone. So I can tell you, censorship is real, but what this prophecy says is about to.
I wonder if that's going to cause a tsunami, Di. 5.9 in the middle of Japan, that might cause a tsunami.
Get a whole lot worse. And what it's specifically saying is that if you don't want your voice turned off, you got to do two things. You got to continue to speak and pray it won't be taken off. Now, if you're one that wants to pray the Prophecy Club does well and not taken off, then the way you do that is go to prophecyclub.com, slide all the way to the bottom, sign up and become part of the fast track team. These are people, I think there's like 1,800 of them now, that fast and pray every Tuesday night, from Tuesday midnight till Friday afternoon at 4 p.m., and specifically pray the same prayer. It takes about 60 seconds to pray it. And you quit anytime you want to. We never send product offers or ask for donations. This is only if you want to fast and pray for Prophecy Club. And while you're there, you can also sign up for Fast Gap, and that is fasting and praying for America at the bottom of prophecyclub.com. Okay, so we know censorship is coming. The problem is we want to believe, somewhere over the horizon, maybe some of the nation won't come to America. Yes, it will. The WEF infiltrated Australia. Now, you have to understand, their objective is not just taking over Australia. The objective is world government with the Antichrist sitting on the throne. So what they plan in one nation, they also plan to do the same thing in other nations.
Well, Diane, the Swedes are usually neutral. Wow.
So it says WEF infiltrated Australia, bans words like brother and sister under a new anti-discrimination law. The far left state of New South Wales has become the first Australian state to impose the WEF gender-neutral policy. The report notes that the Anti-Discrimination Act of 1977 is being modernized, and WEF officials are lobbying for the changes. No surprise. They want to change people to start saying the word sibling instead of the different sex, such as opposite sex. The report also notes that under the same overhaul of anti-discrimination, feminist lobbyists are attempting to enshrine female areas, services, and sports for biological women.
This is true, guys. This is already happening in our country.
And girls by denying right of access for transgender identifying males. They also, we've got a kind of a little bit of that. Some would even say a whole lot of that already in America. They also want to be able to lawfully label biological men as male, regardless of those men's chosen gender identity. Oh, no, it's not just happening in Australia. It's happening in America. Franklin Graham erupts on church officials claiming husband and wife are hurtful words. Franklin Graham, the popular evangelist, is scolding officials of the Methodist Church in the United Kingdom. It's because they're telling ministers that using the words husband and wife is hurtful. We wouldn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, would we? You know, by telling them Jesus is the only.
And let's be honest, guys, Billy Graham, I saw him in 1977. I seen him and I remember it. So he sort of did lead me to Christ, but he died worth $29 million. Did he invent something to make that money, or did he steal it from the collection box? He stole it from the collection box. And he's a 33rd degree Mason, Billy Graham.
way to have eternal life, okay? The church's ideology comes from the worldwide agenda to promote the LGBT lifestyle choices. Those lifestyles made the use of these words awkward because, for instance, when two men are married, which is a husband or are both? Graham Online wrote, the Methodist Church in the United Kingdom has released its own, quote, inclusive church language guide. It urges ministers and churchgoers to avoid using words such as husband, wife, and more because those terms might be hurtful or offensive to someone.
Great point, Shawnee. Where is CERN? Sweden.
He scolded, shame on the Methodist Church. These are biblical terms, and the marriage between a man and a woman is biblical truth. The word wife is used in some 360 verses and 38 books in the Bible. He explained they are, in essence, trying to edit what the Word of God says and teach us to be more appealing to the changing whims of culture. We are warned against that in Scripture. As Christians, we aren't called to avoid what might be offending people. We are called to share the truth of God's Word that can guide and direct us through every step of life. A report from the Western Journal explained that the UK organization is telling ministers and parishioners to avoid certain words on the basis that their usage makes assumptions about one's family life. The church claims that as Christians, we need to have the courage for conversations that can sometimes be difficult, to recognize that we sometimes exclude people, to listen with humility, to repent of any hurtful language or imagery, or to take care of how we listen and what we say, write, or depict in the Spirit of Christ. It explained about the infinite variety in the way of God's creation is expressed in human life. So, terminology such as husband and wife may sound inoffensive, but it makes assumptions about a family or personal life that is not the reality for many people. At Methodist, GB brands terms husband and wife offensive. This is not Christianity, they say. It is critical theories, and it smashes heteronormativity. New word. It is no longer enough to acknowledge disordered lifestyles. Everything normative or ordered must be demolished for fear of causing offense. We wouldn't want to offend anybody by telling people Jesus is the way, the truth, the life, and no man comes to the Father but by him, right? The report noted other terms such as brothers and sisters are also unacceptable on the grounds that it, quote, doesn't take into account our non-binary friends. Well, non-binary friends. Who's coming up with this stuff? Well, of course, the devil. Going full into the woke ideology being promoted by leftists, the church said, you might consider using siblings, friends, or children of God instead. Similarly, using he or she could be exclusive. They is also accurate and acceptable. The statement explained the church organization wants to recognize the harm that it has done to marginalized groups by the church and make amends. Okay, so what we're supposed to do is bend to the devil's way and not walk the straight and narrow path, right? Now let's talk about food shortage. Thousands of German farmers rise up against the WEF takeover food supply and a media blackout. Oh, surely not. You don't suppose their media is owned and controlled by the devil too, like ours? Thousands of farmers in Germany are rising to protest the World Economic Forum's takeover the nation's food supply.
Well,
a total mainstream media blackout. Thousands of farmers in Germany are protesting the WEF's plans to forcibly seize all farms in Germany in order to meet the 2030 Great Reset agenda. Did you catch that? They're planning to seize all farms. Did you?
Diane, I saw that hostage takeover thing, and they're putting dynamite sticks in their pockets, but it looks like it's bodgy. It doesn't really look like a stick of dynamite. It looks like a hot dog with a wick on it. Seriously.
You know that Bill Gates and a couple other people have been buying up massive amounts of farmland in America. He goes on to say farmers will no longer get tax breaks for diesel. They won't get exemption from car tax for farming vehicles under the new plan. They say that these new measures will protect the climate. Great idea. Let's make farming much more expensive, thus making food more expensive in the name of climate change. Farmers are not happy about this, so they've been protesting. Last month, some 40,000 farmers blocked the streets of Berlin with an estimated 8,600 tractors, a 10-kilometer long convoy.
Wow.
They're not happy. They're poisoning our milk now. Cows are being fed toxic chemicals to stop climate change.
Wow.
It's that serious. The Netherlands plan on seizing thousands of farms and reduce the number of livestock. New Zealand, the left-wing government was just defeated at the Farmers United to oppose them in their new fart tax to reduce emissions from cows. Countries are being...
New Zealand is one of the worst left-leaning countries in the planet, guys. They're really bad. We're pretty bad, but they take the cake.
being fed, countries are beginning to feed toxic chemicals to cows to get them to have less burps and farts.
Yeah,
Yes, you read that correctly.
God bless him, eh,
To reduce
Diane?
climate emissions and meet the 2030 climate goals, of course. By the year 2030, the agricultural industry must reduce climate emissions by 5 million tons of CO2. In other words, this, of course, goes back to the UN Agenda 2030 global goals, which none other than Bill Gates himself is funding. The goal is that all ruminant livestock used for dairy and meat shall be fed methane suppressing chemicals in just a few years. Now, what are they calling this new milk? One dairy producer is calling it future milk, another climate milk. It's not some crazy future conspiracy. I went to the grocery store in Norway and found climate milk is all the way down the shelves. The chemical that they're giving the cows is classified as corrosive, flammable, irritant, and a health hazard, and is suspected of damaging fertility in the unborn child. It has a warning label for reproductive toxicity, very harmful to the male reproductive system.
No way!
Our milk supply being poisoned in the name of climate change.
Wow!
The worst.
I never heard that before. That's terrible. They're poisoning the milk.
Part is it seems like nobody in the mainstream media is talking about this. People have no clue what is happening to the milk. See, they have the same problem we do. We don't own, we don't control our media. They control us. It's the tail wagging the dog. Now let's talk about water being poisoned. How many prophecies do we have about water being poisoned? Many. This comes, Dana Coverstone. I'm only going to read part of it. The scene changed. I was hearing news reports and seeing newspaper headlines with serious-faced reporters announcing deaths all over the country. This is America, okay? In both rural and metropolitan areas. The reports were about water systems being poisoned in various areas around the country. I saw headlines. Entire communities poisoned through the water supply. Reporters were telling people to drink nothing but bottled water or water they knew was not connected to the local water supply. It was affecting both larger and smaller communities, but not every community. Now, again, we got 15 Royal Berkeys supposedly on a wish list on the way. Don't go online to order one. Call us, 785-266-1112. Look, it's been several months. We've been totally out of them. And frankly, we didn't think we'd get any more. My guess is these will probably be gone in 24 hours. All spoken for. 785-266-1112. It was impacting the West more so than other places in the U.S., according to the reporters. And they were announcing that there were National Guard units, fully armed, watching water facilities. Did you ever think that the National Guard would be called out to see that our water in America is not poisoned? Thousands reported as having died in hospitals and were fully heavily poisoned people getting medical treatment, and FEMA centers were being set up in those regions. An emergency broadcast announcement was running along the bottom of the TV screen's monitors, stating that the boiling water was not an effective way of making any water safe. Let's say, for example, let's say the poison is a chemical, boiling it won't fix it. Let's say the poison is a snake venom, boiling won't fix it. Now, it's a virus, if it's a bacteria, yeah, boiling fixes it. I then saw a clock tower above a municipal water supply, and his hands pointed to 4:05 in the afternoon. Now, I don't know what 4:05 in the afternoon means, but my guess is that it's probably the 4th month of 2024. It could even be saying the 5th month of 2024. I don't know, but I think there's a high probability it'll be this year. U.S. water utility is targeted by foreign hackers, prompting calls for cybersecurity overhaul. In the tiny Aliquippa Water Authority in western Pennsylvania was perhaps the least suspecting victim of an international cyber attack. It had never outside help in protecting its systems from cyber attack, either at its existing plant dating back to the 1930s or the new one they're building. Then, along with several other water utilities, was struck by what federal authorities say are Iranian-backed hackers. My guess is it's actually Molochs. Okay, these evil people in high places that want to put the Antichrist on the throne. Okay, it's probably, maybe it is Iran-backed, but it's the Molochs behind them. Okay, these evil people. The danger officials say is hackers gaining control of automated equipment to shut down pumps that supply drinking water or contaminate drinking water by reprogramming automated chemical treatments. Now, it could be an oversupply of chemicals, but that's not what the prophecy says. It's probably some kind of a chemical or some kind of a poison, like snake venom or something. More than 50,000 water utilities, much of which are local authorities. Besides, utilities say it's difficult to invest in cybersecurity when upkeep of pipes and water
Hey, Susan, good to see you.
is already underfunded. In other words, they're not going to have the funding to do this. So again, call 785-266-1112 if you want to get one of the last 15 Royal Berkeys on our wish list. It's not even on order, but they say we should be able to get it in a couple of weeks. That's what they say. 785-266-1112. I recommend, if you want to have your wealth not lost, if you've got it in an IRA, if you got it in a 401k.
Just atheists. I don't know.
I think we've seen this one. Hang on, guys.
No, but look.
Hang on, guys. Yeah, this is it.
Literally, we were going to release this video the day after October the 7th. That was October the 8th. Everybody, listen, the video that you are about to watch was actually a video that was recorded, cut, and produced, ready to go before the war in Israel took place on October the 7th. Now, the subject of the video deals with what's happening with cash right now in the United States of America and the fact that we're rapidly headed towards a cashless society. And I just thought I would let you know about that because it feels eerily prophetic in many ways. And I just really hope you guys will enjoy the video. It's about a 22-minute video. And like I said, literally, we were going to release this video the day after October the 7th. That was October the 8th. And as you know, when things like what happened on October the 7th take place, we stop everything and focus in a different direction, and that's what we did. So this is that video that was going to play the day after, We hope you guys will enjoy it. Hope you'll be blessed by it and edified. There's a lot here. So with that, let's let the intro roll. The people of the United States of America have abandoned biblical principles, and as a result, God is judging the nation. The way he's doing it is by giving us a totalitarian regime that continues to speak lies concerning many aspects of life as we know it. And one of those aspects is the condition of our economy. This is what you need to know and understand. We're not fixing it until we repent. Let's talk about what's happening here in the United States of America, because it does bear an effect on what will happen in the rest of the world. Moody's right now is actually saying that the United States credit rating is going to go down if there is a shutdown, right? And what they're going to basically say, a government shutdown, and what they say, and this is their quote, it will underscore the weakness of U.S. institutional and governance strength. So this is funny, because when you start looking at other sovereign nations that have a Moody's AAA
Diane, that's the mode to track what we buy.
rating, and you begin to compare them to the declining condition of the United States of America, then there will be a movement that will be strengthened, like the movement that has already started, but that movement will strengthen to actually diminish the value of the United States dollar. By the way, the value of the United States dollar has gone down substantially because of the insane inflation that we've actually been seeing. And the inflation that we've been seeing has been coming on two fronts, right? It's been happening, of course, with respect to the GDP and how things have happened, right? The consumables have gone up substantially. Now, the White House will lie to you. They have been lying to you, because they are nothing but just a bunch of low-life liars. And what they're actually telling you in the White House is they're saying, well, the kind of inflation that we've been experiencing is relatively inconsequential, because the percentages that we have been observing have nothing to do with the type of percentages that could radically or dramatically affect the condition of the world as we know it, or Americans. And what they say is, they say the percentage.
Yeah, Sean, I only just found him a week or two ago. I like his vids.
Rates are at a level that are not nearly as consequential or record-breaking. And I'll give you a great example of this. They'll say, well, the kind of inflation that we're seeing right now is roughly 7% on average, when in reality, in some cases, we're talking about 40%. Now, some people say, well, James, how is it that they can get away with sharing such a large discrepancy, right? Like, how can they say that we're, our levels of inflation have gone up only a small amount when they've really gone up through the roof? Well, they've changed the rules. I'll give you an example of this. They've been doing this like crazy. They've been lying and moving the definitions so that they can actually make certain assertions. And this is indicative of the type of thing that we should be expecting in the last days, by the way. So let me tell you exactly what's happening here, okay? When it came to us entering into a time of significant economic distress, nobody wanted to call it anything. They didn't want to give it any kind of a name. As a matter of fact, this current regime in office wanted to basically call it a little bit of a lull. They didn't want to call it recession. They did not want to call it depressionary level, which, by the way, let me just tell you, when the Great Depression happened and those bank runs were taking place in the early 1900s, there was a lot less going on in the market with respect to inflation and many other variables that contributed to those bank runs that created the Great Depression. I just want everybody to understand that. We've seen a far more severe level of inflation, record levels of inflation. So how do they get away with doing it? Well, it's really simple. If I am the current totalitarian with my regime ruling office, making statements about what's going on with respect to the economy, and I want to be able to sound convincing to people and not be fact-checked or called a liar, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the definition of what a recession is. And that's exactly what they did. They basically said, well, in order for there to be a recession, then this is the criteria that needs to take place. And in essence, they raised the threshold substantially.
He's
Substantially.
He's Egyptian, is he? I thought he might have been Samoan or something like that. He's got a swarthy look, so he's Egyptian. Okay.
So that the conditions that would normally be labeled as a recession or depression for that matter have not yet been met, so that they can continue to say all is well, because they're liars and they love the devil, which is the father of lies, their own father. When we talk about what they used to use as a determining variable with respect to an index, they used to use things like milk, eggs, cheese, things like that. That's what they used. So when you actually had to sit down and you actually had to look at what was the cause of inflation, you would look at the items that people would normally buy, things that they would actually depend on, right? Very important item here. You can't just simply say that there is no inflation when things are going through the roof. That wouldn't work, not to anybody. So what do? Look what happens, right? Think about this. This is very, very important. They basically say, before we make a statement about inflation in our country, what we're going to do is change the definition of how we determine inflationary items so that we can change our index. So the index that used to determine inflation, which still does, it actually had items in there like eggs, cheese, milk, diapers, things like that. Now they have things like aluminum aircraft grade steel. Now they put things in that index that are so under.
Wow, isn't that sneaky? Wow.
Little demand, that in essence, what happens is that the percentage rates that relates to the inflationary mechanisms that drive those prices, they don't affect those items as much. So when eggs are going up 40%, and when real estate prices are going up, in some cases 100+%, and when gas is going up 300% in some markets, they're not using those items to be the determining variables for how inflation is determined. They're now taking things like rare wood that nobody asks for, the type of things where there is no demand, and if there is no demand because of the complexities associated with the difficulties of obtaining those items, then what in essence they do is they basically say, we don't need it, we don't buy it, the prices don't go up, it's not affected by inflation, right? Think about that for a moment. So people don't want to buy aircraft grade aluminum. People are not looking for rivets that can go into one very specific item and it can only be used for one purpose. People are not looking for a, spaceship faucet. So those prices are not going up. As a matter of fact, in some cases, some of those prices are going down. So what do? They go back and they change the items in the index to items that are not nearly going as high. So while the real inflation rates are in the neighborhood of 30, 40, 50% in some cases, the White House is saying that's misinformation, that's a lie, that's false information. We're going by the same index, and the price index that we're seeing, particularly the consumer price index, is now misreporting what's really happening, because the items that you would oftentimes see stipulated from within that index have been completely changed. So what's really happening right now is that inflation is going through the roof. Remember, you had to go buy eggs. Folks, what used to be a few dollars for a dozen eggs in some markets is $8 or $9. When you start looking at the price of cheese and milk and so many of these other things, the value of your dollar has diminished substantially. So inflation is taking place as to absolutely no avail. This is the one that really concerns me, right? Because the rate of inflation that's taking place has been a problem in this country. But the greatest contributory variable has something to do with an interesting situation happening in Russia. Okay? So this is what happens, right? Think about this. And I want you to develop this in your mind. We go to Russia back in the Gorbachev days, and we tell Russia, if you do what we're asking you to do, and you break up the Soviet Union, and you cooperate with us in seeking to put together this type of treaty, for lack of a better term, then what we will do for you, Russia, is we will make you a certain set of guarantees that NATO will not expand into Ukraine or other areas that may potentially affect your security. Gorbachev says, okay, the walls in Europe come down, all kinds of things begin to happen, and almost immediately, what does the United States of America do with a few allies? They push for the expansion of NATO.
In Yugoslavia.
And not only do they push for the expansion of NATO, they start a movement that begins to chip away at the sovereignty of Russia via proxy war. So now we hit the fast forward button.
I think it's
and you see
Yugoslavia.
dirtbags like Lady Graham and a few other of these hardcore liar Republicans that are just as evil in many cases as the Democrats, who basically say, hey, listen, we need to deal with Putin. We need to take him out. Oh, and by the way, we need to expand into Ukraine, and we need to give Ukraine lots of money, and we need to help Ukraine defeat Russia. They all know for a fact that Ukraine doesn't have a chance in defeating Russia. We all know that. Everybody that knows anything about Russia knows that Russia is going to walk all over Ukraine. Some people say that the amount of death that's happening right now in Ukraine is 15 to 1. Okay, we're quickly approaching 1 million lives lost in Ukraine. And yet the United States of America has given Ukraine double the amount of money that was represented by Russia's whole defense budget in the past year, and we still are getting our rears kicked. So let me back up. We began to push other nations to yield to the idea of a NATO expansion that actually begins to affect Russia's sovereign control over a majority of their security assets. And not just their security assets, but also the assets that they control that keep the shipment of goods and services into the country. Specifically, as we look at Crimea and some of the areas that surround that. So Russia begins to see what's going on, and they begin to make a slight pivot where they realize that nobody in the international community is acting in good faith, at least the international community that's associated with NATO. And he does what he's being forced to do. Let me tell you, let me summarize this for you, okay? The United States of America pushed Russia into Ukraine, and now the United States of America is paying Ukraine a poop load of money to keep running its citizens into the meat grinder in hopes of weakening Russia's position because they are fighting a proxy war using innocent Ukrainians to want to affect something going on with Russia. Why? Because Putin has finally signaled that he is fully aware of and understands and is developing an attack plan on American clandestine operations that have existed in Ukraine prior to World War II. So let's get this straight. We push Russia into invading, as they would call it, Ukraine. And now we are seeking to penalize Russia for what they did. And that brings us to the second contributory variable to the inflation that we're seeing and the problems with the weakening US dollar. What we do is, in essence, after we affect that cause, we then say, look, we're going to sanction you. And the way we're going to sanction you is we're going to take away all of your money, which a substantial portion of his wealth is liquidated in the form of the US dollar. So what does Putin say? Putin says, hey, no problem. There's one variable you all forgot. And the variable you forgot is the fact that your own president, yes, President Biden, gave me full control to complete the Nord Stream pipeline, Nord Stream 2 specifically. And quite frankly, nobody has, no, when I say nobody could anticipate what would happen, number one. But he says, nobody in Western Europe or Eastern Europe for that matter will have access to my energy resources if you're going to keep this nonsense up. Uh-oh, now we have a problem. So then Putin goes to the international community, specifically those that are on the European continent, and he says, well, I got all this energy stuff that I can give you. And by the way, this energy stuff is what you need. I've got the gas you need, the natural gas. I've got the petroleum you need. I got everything that you need to be able to sustain yourself because you're going into a very, very cold winter. Then he says this. Ready? He says, I'm going to charge you a little bit more. My production levels are going to have to go down because of what you're doing to me. You're putting me in a very difficult position, and I'm not doing it despite you. I'm doing it because you've put me in a very difficult position, and all my resources are being spent defending my country. So the Europeans are like, okay, well, we kind of expected some of this to happen. This is going to hurt. It's not going to be good. And then he lays the bomb on them. He says, oh, yeah, by the way, you can no longer buy my energy resources with the United States dollar, which, by the way, the United States dollar had the buying power everywhere. It was the gold standard.
He's already
everywhere.
done that. I didn't know that.
Now he just peed all over the United States dollar and in essence said, the only way you can buy oil from me is through the ruble. So what do they have to do? They have to start exchanging. That's exactly what has to happen. And in the process, the value of the US dollar has gone down and down and down and down and down and down. And now we're looking at articles like Moody's saying that if there's a government shutdown, the United States is not going to be able to hold up to other AAA rated sovereignties. This is important, right? Because Moody's is the last of the three major agencies that give credit ratings to sovereign nations. That's a very important thing. But there are other agencies that have already downgraded the United States' credit rating. We have to understand that. It's really, really important. Fitch downgraded the United States to a AA+ rating from a AAA rating. That happened earlier this year, right? And now we're beginning to see these indicators from Moody that they're about to do the same thing. And if they're about to do the same thing, nobody is going to want to deal with U.S. currency. And if nobody wants to deal with U.S. currency, I don't care what you say. You can say BRICS will work out or whatever will work out. It's not going to happen. As a matter of fact, let me just say this. I'm going to make myself very, very clear. As a matter of fact, it's going to destroy currency as a whole. There will not be cash in our society after the US dollar is actually completely destroyed. They're working hard to do it. They want to do it. They don't care about anybody else in the context of doing it. And that's the farm that they're actually buying. And I think that this is a very important issue to bring out to the table. It's very, very important that we see this. That's exactly what they want to do. How about this when you start looking at the domestic condition of our finances? We know we're well on the way to the US dollar going bye-bye. When the US dollar goes bye-bye, we're well on our way to going to a cashless society. That's really where, listen, that's really where we're going right now. We are in the midst of going down a cashless society road, which when we get into Revelation 13, we should expect that to happen. Because how are you going to enforce the buy or sell of anything if you are not utilizing a system that's cashless? It's really simple. The Federal Reserve is making a forecast concerning interest rates by hiking those interest rates. And the financial markets are basically saying, we don't respect you, Fed, which has never happened before. And they're actually betting against the position of the Fed. That's a big deal, by the way. You're talking about more interest rate hikes now, and eventually they'll cut down the interest rate next year. By the way, why are they interest rate hiking? They're interest rate hiking because as inflation is increasing out of control, when you increase the interest rates, you manage to slow down the inflation, because as the cost of money goes higher, people stop spending money because they can't afford to be able to pay for the cost of their borrowing. This is pretty important for us, because if the market is fighting the Fed right now, then that means the Fed has effectively lost their control to regulate the fiat currency that is known as the US dollar, in order to be able to maintain a semblance of order with respect to keeping rapid inflation from taking place. That's going to all go bye-bye. And now the interest rates that they raise, the only time those will be affected is within the context of the T-bills that are already being sold for pennies on the dollar. Kind of a big deal if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Higher yields, inflation is not going to fall. The market is ignoring it. The Fed is beginning to lose its credibility in substantial ways, right? And now we're beginning to see an influx of people who their very actions cause the value of the US dollar to go bye-bye, because the way that they live in this country is based on a bartering system, which also dramatically affects how we look at things like consumption in this country, and the demand with respect to the economic principle.
Hang on. Hey guys. Oh man. No, wrong one.
And I can't encourage you enough.
I'll try and find another one of his.
Good evening, friends. Stephen Benoon here with Israeli News Live. And if you can recognize the picture that's on the screen here, you are looking at Brother Greg Renshin. And he is an amazing brother that has had a tremendous past. I actually got introduced to some of his work earlier this year, and I watched quite a few of the videos where Brother Greg speaks about his experiences both in the military as well as the private sector that he went into later.
Oh, man.
I'm going to ask him in just a moment here to share some of that information with you about his past before we get started. But if there's a person that I have ever heard that we just seem to fit like a hand in a glove together in discussing these demonic entities that are really about to reveal themselves in a very bizarre way. This is the brother, I think, and I thank God that he's a Christian as well, believes Jesus Christ 100%. His wife, what a special woman as well, a real genuine believer too. So, Brother Greg, thank you for being on with us here tonight on Israeli News Live, and I'm really looking forward to this for a long time.
Well, thanks for having me on, number one, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Brother Greg, I have to keep in mind, I'm sure once this airs, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, oh my gosh, I've listened to Brother Greg, I've listened to all of his videos. But there's still going to be a bunch of...
Okay, I just had that to fill in while I found something else, guys. I think we watched that a week or two ago. So I found something else of James Cadets. Oh, hang on. And he seems to be on the King Charles, so this should be interesting.
Will stand as proof of that. And at the end of this video, The UN just hosted COP28 in the UAE, and folks, what came out of this event is absolutely mind-boggling. The videos you're about to see should not surprise us, but they are completely outrageous. I can promise you this, we are quickly heading towards the world of Revelation 13, and everything you see here will stand as proof of that. And at the end of this video, you're going to see a...
When the Balkan Wars happened with Serbia and Croatia and that, they got down to the barter system because there's no cash, and the currency was tobacco. That was the main currency with the Sarajevo Croatian War. That's the currency they use the most, tobacco.
Blast from the past, and that segment will still shock you. Here we go. 2024 is around the corner. Let's fight the good fight. All right, folks, let's get into this one. Now, we have been talking about this a lot. We have been warning you about so much of the things that we expect to see as we approach the last days. And we are undoubtedly in the throes of it all. Times are changing. Things are getting absolutely crazy. When everything started happening a couple of years ago with the convergence of removing people's rights, when they were wanting to shut churches down, and all of those things were happening in the name of safety and wanting to preserve our lives, and the big crisis was being sort of taken advantage of, we told everybody that more than ever, as the church and as the body of Christ, we needed to stick together, and not only stick together, but we needed to stand up for righteousness, because as it says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, we really are the preserving influence. We are the people who are the restraining force. And as we know from verse 3 of that same chapter, we know that the final Antichrist can't even be revealed to the world unless the church is actually raptured. That's what the departing refers to. As important of a fact as that is, there's a very pressing issue in front of us, and that is the obligation.
Yes, I've seen that. I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
Set forth in front of us to actually identify what is true versus what is not true. And we are seeing so many issues that are coming up in the name of climate change. Now, I just want to say this right off the bat, because some of the videos you're going to see are just mind-boggling. And I'm hoping that by showing you some of these videos, you're going to be able to better understand the level of manipulation that's actually taking place and how hard people are working to kind of twist the way you see these things. We're going to show you a couple of videos. The first video I'm going to show you is the introduction to COP28. Now, COP28 was the gathering that was just had a few weeks ago, and it's pretty much the United Nations forum or gathering for the whole purpose of saving the climate. Now, the funny thing is saving the world from preventing climate change is sort of the tool that's being used to take people's individual rights away, to remove all kinds of things that people just took for granted over the years. And we are definitely moving into the direction of the final Antichrist. I showed you the comments that Prince Charles made at COP26, and then eventually I showed you the comments that King Charles made at this recent COP28, and they all fall along in the same arena. They're going in the same direction. And it's going towards the world of globalism. It's going towards the world of the final Antichrist. When we talk about this 10-nation confederation, we are moving in that general direction. And everything that we see beginning to show its ugly face is giving us more and more evidence of that. So I'm going to show you the introduction video right before Secretary Guterres comes up. And what he says is terribly manipulative. When you look at...
It looks like a bullfrog.
Just the way his very words are structured, it's unbelievable. Thank God that the way he speaks, look, you can see the evil in what he says. So we're going to go over that. And then after we go over that, what we're going to do is we're going to go over a document that he actually presented just prior to COP26 that deals with the long-term goal that they had in achieving a certain way of looking at things and a certain set of goals for the whole world. We're not just talking about one section or one region, the whole world, in order to combat climate change. And that document is going to make you sick. We're going to go over it, and I'm going to show you some of it. And it is just mind-boggling when you take a look at some of the stated goals that he actually lists, and we'll kind of close off with that. So let me play the intro that came out at the very beginning of this. And again, this goes to show you the level of manipulation that continues to be deployed to get people to really worry about these things that are happening. Now, I just want to say this. I do believe in climate change. I actually believe as a pastor and as a Christian that the world is going to eventually be destroyed because of global warming, because of heat. And what that destruction will be is when God destroys the world with fire, okay? Make no mistake about it. The Bible says that that's coming. But what they are bringing up is, in essence, a pretext for doing something far more nefarious than the idea of just a simple, kind and affectionate effort to want to affect change in the world. Yeah, they want to affect change in the world, but it's not for the better. So let's play this. You'll see what I mean with the manipulation and all that kind of stuff. And then I will play the opening remarks of Secretary Guterres. And then after that, I will show you the document that he put together. Now, at certain points, I will stop the video so that I can provide some commentary. The intro doesn't really need me to stop, but you'll understand when you see it, and then we'll talk about it before Secretary Guterres goes on. Let's watch this.
The reality is that despite all the effort that's been made here, things are going in the wrong direction.
We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing.
There are too many things dividing our world at this moment. We are heading in the right direction, but nowhere near fast enough.
Whether it will be enough will define this summit.
Isn't it funny, the beautiful music? The world does not need to see more evidence of climate change. The world doesn't need more science. The world doesn't need more empirical data. I have to disrupt the emotional music to reveal the lies. We can always use more evidence of things that we're about to change the whole world for, right? The world needs a community committed. What's that community? Committed to what? What's the real thing it needs to be committed to? Ugh. Hope for humanity. The only hope for humanity is Christ. I'm sorry. I just feel compelled to disrupt the emotional condition of the music that's being played right now. I just, the manipulation that's going on by the type of music that's being played, I just feel the need to be a disruptor here, right? The only hope for humanity is Christ. It's not what the UN is doing. If UN was the hope for humanity, we're all going to hell, and we're in really, really big trouble. It's bad. It's really bad.
Amen, Susan.
world
We win.
needs.
That's all there is to it. We win.
You're the one that's going to do this. Unite, act, deliver. That really does have a nice secular humanistic sort of bent, doesn't it? It sounds like the epitome of globalist neo-Malthusian garbage, doesn't it? Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good. Satan is really, really good at what he does, isn't he, folks? Well, let's continue to listen. By the way, for those of you that don't know, you see all the sheikhs. This was taking place in the United Arab Emirates. So this is in the UAEs where COP28 was taking place. So just FYI.
Let us now introduce a leader whose stewardship epitomizes the ideals of unity, diplomacy, and progress. Ladies and gentlemen,
Prince
the
Saladin.
Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
Guterres. By the way, I do think it is kind of funny. It's a Middle Eastern woman in the UAE who's making the announcement because they want to show that they're more open to it. I just can't. The typical Middle Eastern world would never allow this. But it's just, okay, on we go. We must listen to Antonio Guterres. Don't you love the emotional music that they play? The flute and all that. Wow. You know, he's like, this is going to be great, isn't it?
Your Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President.
Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. You know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. No. Let's continue on.
The United Arab Emirates. I want to express my profound gratitude for the wonderful hospitality that we are enjoying in Dubai from the government and the people of the United Arab Emirates. COP28 President Dr. Sultan Ahmed Al Jaber, I want to congratulate you on the positive start of the COP with an expeditious approval of the agenda and the landmark operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund. Congratulations. Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, friends, all protocol observed. Just days ago, I was on the melting ice of Antarctica.
By the way, I just want to warn you on the whole melting ice of Antarctica. He's going to make a big deal of this. He did this, by the way, and I would highly recommend, if you want to listen to all kinds of empty rhetoric and potentially a lot of unscientific lies, to listen to what he says about Antarctica in a press briefing that he gave that talks about how pretty much things are going to pretty much destroy the whole world if we don't change with respect to the melting ice in Antarctica. And we've heard about this stuff for a very, very long time. Not that I'm trying to minimize the idea that we have to take care of the world that God has given us. Undoubtedly, we have to take care of the earth. But the rhetoric that he uses to ease into an agenda that promotes a globalism that carries the whole, for lack of a better term, the whole agenda of a secular humanistic philosophy is literally thick in the air. I mean, you can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it.
Not long before, I was among the melting glaciers of Nepal. These two spots are far in distance, but united in crisis. Polar ice and glaciers are vanishing before our eyes, causing havoc the world over, from landslides and floods to rising seas. But this is just one symptom of the sickness bringing our climate to its knees, a sickness only you, global leaders, can cure. Excellencies,
oh, there's Charles.
Earth's vital signs are failing. Record emissions, ferocious fires, deadly droughts, and the hottest year ever. We can guarantee it even we are still in November. We are miles from the goals of the Paris Agreement.
Can I just say this? We're in Southern California, those of us that are here in Southern California. It certainly does not feel like the warmest year ever, but I'm going to digress. Let's move on.
And minutes to midnight for the 1.5 degree limit. But it is not too late. We can, you can prevent planetary crash and burn. We have the technologies to avoid the worst of climate chaos if we act now. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has charted a clear path to the 1.5 degree world. But we need leadership, cooperation, and political will for action, and we need it now.
Political will for action. That's the one that kind of gets me a little bit, because there is going to be a sort of a convergence upon the discussion of political will, because the movement here is for globalism. That's what the movement is. The movement is for the world of the final Antichrist. I can promise you that. And I'm going to show you in a document that he released a few years ago that they are holding very, very close to their chests. And it's going to continue to reiterate the same principles. Take a listen.
It's true. Our world is unequal and divided. As we see in this region, conflicts are causing immense suffering and intense emotion.
In this region, he's talking about these conflicts that are causing immense suffering and emotion and so on and so forth. He's referring to Israel, by the way, and he's going to take a shot at Israel, even in what he says here. It's terrible, but he's going to do that. Let's take a listen.
We just had the news that the bombs are sounding again in Gaza. And climate chaos is fanning the flames of injustice.
We just got news that the bombs are going off again in Gaza, and climate chaos is in essence the cause of all of it. What is it going to be? Is it going to be the Israelis and the imperialist project known as Israel that you continue to imply being the reason why this is going on? Or is it climate change? Do you guys see the manipulation that's going on here? Do you understand how crazy this is? Let's call it what it is. You have Hamas that is being aggressive, and they are doing everything that they can to destroy Israel. They did it on the 7th of October. They said they'll do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And when Israel seeks to defend itself,
they're the villains.
This guy right here is continuing to propagandize the situation in order to affect the outcome that he wants during COP28. It's not about the oppressors right now. It's all about climate change that has caused all of this stuff. This is insane, but that's what's happening here.
Global heating is busting budgets.
Global heating is busting budgets.
Ballooning food prices.
Ballooning food prices. Energy markets going into disarray. It's all going down because of the climate.
Markets and feeding a cost of living crisis. But climate action can flip the switch. And renewable energy is...
And if we take climate action, we'll flip the switch in Gaza. Oh yeah. If we take climate action, we'll flip the switch in Israel. If we take climate action, we'll flip the switch in Yemen. Forget the fact that Islam is what's driving an overwhelming majority of what's going on. And let's forget that the open and blatant anti-Semitic sentiment that continues to fill the hearts and the minds of those who are fundamentalists of the Quran do exactly what they're going to do. Man has a somewhat immutable characteristic that is tied to the fact that it was born with a sinful nature that causes the depravity that we see within them to create the propagation of such violence. Climate change.
The gift that keeps on giving. It's good for our planet, our health, and our economies, cleaning our hair, meeting the world's growing energy demand, connecting millions of people to affordable electricity, bringing stability and security to markets, and saving money, as renewable energy has never been cheaper. Excellencies, friends, The diagnosis is clear. The success of the COP depends on the global stocktake prescribing a credible cure in 3 areas. First, drastically cutting emissions. Current policies would lead to...
I have a question. Drastically cutting emissions. So would we drastically cut emissions by not flying every single member who has participated in COP28 via private jet? I think those emissions would be, the totality of those emissions just in those flights alone would be more than the emissions of many of the regions in the UAE for the whole year. But that's a whole other issue. I digress.
An earth-scorching 3-degree temperature rise. So the global stocktake must set clear expectations for economy-wide national determined contributions presented by all countries that cover all greenhouse gases and align with 1.5-degree limits. The G20, which represents 80% of the world's emissions, must lead. And I urge countries to speed up their net zero timelines to get there as close as possible to 2040 in developed countries and 2050 in emerging economies.
Vast, I think that Israel's so bold now because they've got their Messiah. Do you remember the Yanuka, whatever his name is? The Jewish Messiah they think they found already? I think that's why they got their bold, why they're so bold.
Second, we cannot save a burning planet via fire holes of fossil fuels. We must accelerate a just, equitable transition to renewables.
So I have a question about the whole fossil fuel thing. If we remove fossil fuels, which by the way, fossil fuels make everything. Fossil fuels are responsible for the cups you drink out of. Fossil fuels are responsible for every single thing that you know in modern day living. As a matter of fact, fossil fuels were used to produce the podium that guy is standing behind, the microphone that he's using, and the very suits that he's wearing. Very likely the things that he uses to wash his hair were produced with the help of fossil fuels. So what do?
That's
do
true.
We go on to like electric powered cars? Is that how it works? Anybody ever looked up the cost of mining lithium? Anybody ever looked at the detriment that it has in...
Susan, he's still around now. Type in on YouTube the Yanuka, Y-A-N-U-K-A. It's a Jewish Messiah. The rabbis are going nuts over him.
Mining lithium, the detriment that mining lithium has to the world, to the earth. By the way, you've got to use fossil fuels to do that too. Beside the point, I digress.
The science is clear. The 1.5-degree limit is only possible if we ultimately stop burning of fossil fuels. Not reduce, not abate, phase out with a clear time frame aligned with 1.5 degrees.
1.5 degrees. The burning of fossil fuel. Stop the burning of fossil fuels. So if we stop the burning of fossil fuels, we stop modern day life. We don't have anything. You can't watch YouTube if we stop burning fossil fuels. You understand that? You can't do anything without fossil fuels being burned. They must be burned to produce plastic. They have to be burned to produce the tires that your vehicle drives on. You understand that fossil fuels are used for virtually everything. And even if you don't burn it, the use of those petroleum elements are literally in everything.
And guys, this is true as well. When a volcano blows, in 1 hour, it puts out more carbon monoxide than the whole of mankind's since it invented the motor. Put the whole years we've had motor energy, like 120 years, put all that carbon monoxide together, and 1 hour on one volcano will outstrip that. So there's no point even trying. It's ridiculous.
Everything. So to say that we're going to stop burning fossil fuels, that means the whole world is going to go into a lithium mining operation? Is that what's going to happen? Do you understand how destructive to the world that's going to be? Oh, yeah, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, what do I mean by that, Bas? I mean, Ishmael is jealous of Jacob, is it? I'm not sure which one of the brothers. And he's the bastard son of, he's the ancestor of Islam. And that's why Islam is so jealous of the Jews. They're so jealous because I reckon their ancestor is Ishmael.
This is nuts.
And the global stocktake must not only commit to that, it must also commit to triple renewables, double energy efficiency, and bring clean energy to all by 2030.
By the way, by 2030, the cleaner energy, the double of the energy renewals, all the stuff that he's talking about here, you are not going to get anywhere near that by 2030 because just you getting off of fossil fuels is an impossibility. Good luck. This guy won't be able to get on a jet and fly anywhere. I promise you that. He's not getting rid of fossil fuels. I can tell you that right now.
The economics are clear. The global shift to renewables is inevitable.
By the way, he's a liar about the economics being clear. Well, actually, you know what? That's wrong. You know what? I want to repent. That's a statement for me to make. The economics are clear about these fossil fuels. They are very, very clear. It's impossible economically to be done. It is very, very clear. It's clear.
The only question is how much heating our planet will endure before it happens. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is recommending ending our addiction to coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 for the rest of the world. At the same time, according to the International Energy Agency, the oil and gas industry accounts for just 1% of clean energy investments. So allow me to have a message for fossil fuel company leaders. Your old road is rapidly aging. Do not double down on an obsolete business model.
Isn't it ridiculous that he's standing in the middle of the UAE where there are people surrounding him that their whole lives center around oil, fossil fuels, and he's basically saying, you're dating yourself, don't ever, good luck? Come on. Really? Are they really listening?
Okay, guys, I'll come back to this one. I found one on the new Jewish Messiah. So I'll do this one and I'll go back to what we were watching. This is a Jewish Messiah.
I'm extremely proficient in Mark chapter 13, verse 22 says, "For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. In the last days, there will be false signs and false wonders, false miracles being performed by just average false prophets and false Christs, as the verse mentions, as well as the Antichrist and the false prophet." Many verses, most of the verses about false signs and wonders and false miracles are related to the false prophet, which is one of the figures who, of course, I just always have my eye out for, the Antichrist and the false prophet, because we have identifying characteristics about what they'll look like in the Bible. And so it's very interesting when someone prominent in Israel starts to rise up and is actually accredited with miracles. Yes, this Yanuka Rav Shalom.
And look at the black and white mason colours behind him, guys. And the mason pillars. There you go. Already.
Yehuda is actually accredited with performing at least 5 or 6 miracles that I'll get into here in just a moment. I'll do just a quick overview on this guy for anybody who hasn't heard of him. I learned of him through the channel Wallytron 101. Very grateful for him pointing this guy out because there's extremely strange coincidences surrounding this guy. A lot of characteristics that are similar to what the false prophet will have. So a quick overview on this guy is that he grew up as a Jewish person, obviously, but became extremely proficient in the Torah and the Talmud and all these different Jewish texts, which in itself is a supernatural.
That's a bit strange. He can do miracles, but he needs glasses to see. That's a little bit weird.
Sign and wonder, really, because it's said by the age of 15 that he was already proficient in the Talmud, which is like hundreds of books. So for like any human being to ever be proficient in that is shocking. They say that this guy's level of understanding in the Torah and the Talmud is only seen in like rarely in throughout generations. So that's what gives him the title, the Yanuka, somebody who's just proficient, profoundly proficient in the Torah and the Talmud and all the Jewish laws and texts and beliefs that they have. And through his understanding, he's gaining a lot of prominence in Israel. Many of the high-level Jewish rabbis and Jewish people are just in awe and going to him for their wisdom and knowledge. This just reminds me of his understanding of the Torah, and all this just reminds me of the reference of Jesus in the Bible, and how there was multiple times when Jesus would be teaching and these people were saying, how does this guy know these things? He isn't even like a scholar. Just an interesting characteristic there. An interesting quote on this YouTube channel about him, the Yenuka Rav Shlomo Yehuda. I believe it's ran by just somebody else who's just in awe of this guy, has a quote from a Jewish person in the video talking about him, and this is just the mindset that they're viewing him as. It says, he is a unique and special soul that has descended into the world to illuminate the world.
Wow.
Extremely interesting wordage. There's another very shocking quote here from the person who made this video about him. Then I'll get into the miracles that he's actually performed. First, they reference a verse from the book of Job that says, you will decree and it will be fulfilled. That's Job 22:28. And then the person who made the video, listen to the quote they say about him. Many have experienced salvation through his blessing and in the power of his Torah, and witnessed miracles transcending the forces of nature. Now that's like so much sounds like he's talking about God, but that's actually what he's referencing to this Yenuka. So now I'll get into these miracles that he's performed, but first I need to point out something that needs to be referenced, that all of these miracles, and I'll leave the videos in the description where you can see what these people's wordage of the miracles are, you know, word for word from their own mouth. Every single one of these people who talk about the miracle that happened to them, not a single one mentioned God. I believe in miracles and I believe God heals and does things, but every single person who I know who has been healed or touched by God always references Jesus or God, or this person prayed for me and God healed me and God touched me. Not a single person in these videos says that. All the glory is going to this Yenuka. So this first one is a video that says, in one moment I was walking again, an incredible miracle with the Yenuka. This guy was sick. He was in a wheelchair. He was getting these transfusions. It was making him extremely sick. And the Yenuka, he went to him. The guy came down the stairs and came to him. And then now here he is, completely fine, not having to go to the doctor or anything else anymore. That's its own video. Again, I'll leave that in the description. All the other miracle references here are in another video that I'll also leave in the description. And the miracles that are attributed to the Yenuka is one guy met with the Yenuka. The Yenuka said that he would meet his soulmate that day, and that very day he met the person who he married. There's another guy who had malignant tumors, and the tumors disappeared.
I hardly call that a miracle. You'll meet your soulmate today and he meets his soulmate. That's not really a miracle.
After having a conversation, and the Yenuka just said that they would be gone, and they were gone. Another guy was released from prison before the Sabbath, and his wordage for this was that it was not of this world, altering the laws of nature. It happened just as the Rav said. And there was one more guy in this video who referenced that he was about to go into surgery. He had to go. It was the day before surgery that he was going in. He met with the Yenuka, and then Yenuka said he'd be healed, and he was healed. So pretty shocking to hear. And again, I just have to point out that not a single reference to God was working through him. God healed me through him. Not a single ounce of the glory for these miracles was given to God. It was all given to the Yenuka.
Good point.
Start celebrating Monday on 10 and 10 Fly.
There will come a day when the actual figure, the false prophet, comes on the earth, and he will perform signs and wonders. A few verses I will reference on this is Revelation 13, 11 through 17. I'll paraphrase. Within that passage, it references the false prophet and that he was in the presence of the first beast and had the authority that he had, and caused all people to worship the first beast who had the fatal wound, who had his head wound healed. I don't know, maybe the false prophet heals that head wound from the Antichrist. But in verse 13, it says he performs great signs, so that he even calls down fire from heaven in the presence of all men, and he deceives the entire earth because of the signs that he performs in the presence of the beast, and then also tells the people of earth to make an image of the beast, which is then life is given to that image. In Revelation 16, in verses 13 through 14, it also tells us that unclean spirits, demons, come out of the mouth of the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet. And these unclean spirits, the demons, perform signs, and they go to the kings of the earth and gather them together for the war of Armageddon, the war of the great day of God Almighty. And Revelation chapter 19, verse 20 says, and the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet, who performed the signs in his presence, by which he deceived those who had the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. These two were thrown alive into the lake of fire, which burns with brimstone. Now, I'm not saying this guy, Rav Shlomo Yehuda, the Yanuka, is actually the false prophet, but he is definitely acting in ways clearly referenced within the Bible of somebody who will have these same characteristics. I mean, what are we supposed to think when somebody's gaining this type of popularity?
Okay, Shawnee, good night. I'm out soon too, guys.
Very similar attributes, and then also now performing signs and miracles and giving no credit to God for it. So this is absolutely the type of person who would fit into the characteristic of who would be the false prophet. It really makes me start to think of the idea that I have, which again, I'm just, I'm definitely not an expert in Bible prophecy, but it does make me think, what if the Jewish people had their Messiah come, and that's who the false prophet is? The Islamic people, the Muslims, had their Messiah come, that's who the Mahdi, their savior, is, who they're looking for. And then these two come together, and then they unite the Jewish people in this peace.
Okay, that was the Jewish Yanuka. Interesting, hey guys? Okay, I'll finish off with this one.
You need this if you want to whiten and strengthen your teeth. I've recently started on the Oral-B 3D White Professional Toothpaste. It gives me whiter teeth in 3 days and protects my enamel with no compromise on the strength or safety of my teeth. I didn't believe it at first, but wow, look.
Why settle for the usual taste? In Tokyo, we never do. Asahi Super Dry, the refreshing taste of modern Japan, beyond expectation.
Nah, wouldn't
Hey
drink
guys,
it.
today this is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We've
Don't think I'd like a Japanese beer.
seen some rather curious things of recent with regards to Madonna and Little Nas X. I don't know if you have seen Little Nas X's recent, I guess you would call it conversion, folks. He's back. He's a believer again, according to him. And no longer is he making satanic, music. He's a good guy now. This is what he's saying. He says he's returning to the man upstairs, to God, after the industry tried to make him satanic. Right? This is what he says here. He says actually a lot of different things. He's got a new album coming out, To the King of Kings. This kind of reminds me of Kanye a little bit. It says right here, when my label gave me the choice of going independent to release my new gospel music or staying with them. Are you going to stay with them? Are you going to stay with the devil? Or are you going to go with God? Right? Now, of course, this plays off what, it's pretty obvious that there is definitely some influences from the devil with, of course, music. It's not rocket science. Just look at some of Little Nas X's previous songs. That'll give you a little, highlight of some of that. Here we go. Here's his channel.
Good night, guys. God bless, bro.
Here's one of his songs right here. Yeah, that was kind of, I would call a little bit devilish. Got this one here as well. This one, yeah. So, of course, only 455 million views, folks. 500 million views, not that many. Of course, it didn't influence anybody in any way, shape, or form to like the devil, right? Obviously, it did. Now he's saying that he's changed his ways. Little Nas X is out there saying he's now a believer. But the thing that made me wonder was, why do you still have these songs on your account? Is it because you don't own the account? I'm kind of thinking he might own the account. Look at this. Look at the symbol. He's got the symbol. Did he have that symbol before? Did he have that symbol before? I'm curious. Maybe he did have that symbol before. Maybe I didn't know that. But he has a symbol, as you can see at the top of the page. And he's still promoting this symbol, even now. He says this is a good symbol. It looks like a goat horns on a star. Think of a falling star with it's a goat. I don't know. Maybe the devil? I don't know. It also looks kind of like an upside down, cross. That's another thing. It doesn't look like a good symbol. Let's just put it that way. He's saying that it's a good symbol. The only way he could actually be, in my mind, a believer, yet somehow these songs are still on his channel, is if he doesn't actually own the channel and the music label owns his YouTube channel. Right? Well, if the music label owns his channel, or maybe they own the songs on his channel and he can't touch them or something. It could be that as well. I'm not quite sure. But I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this. Do you think this guy really has made a change in his life? He has a lot of things he's been saying. As you can see here, here's another one. Me explaining to my fans that the media stopped supporting me after I started promoting. I think it says God to the masses. And the industry is wicked, which is why I blackballed from releasing music for the last year and a half. But I'm finally independent now and will be dropping a new song next week. Now, I'm going to show you a couple things that sort of contradict what he's saying, partially. This one sort of does. Actually, I think this one does, actually. This one contradicts what he's saying. But there's actually two other ones that are very obvious. Here you have, and we're going to get into a number, actually, we're going to get into a lot of things in this video. I'm going to get into something that happened at a church that's pretty unbelievable. As we get into this, we're going to talk about Madonna a little bit. We're going to talk about, I'm going to expand off some of the stuff I was talking about in my other video on my other channel, get into some things I wasn't able to get into. I'm going to get into what a certain prawn, star said. We'll get into that as well. But before we do so, I'm going to mention food supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. Considering all the things going on around us, folks, you might want to get this. They actually have a new option as well. They have 3 months for $5.97. They have this thing, a space heater / stove, Vesta self-powered indoor space heater and stove.
See, Susan, I think Kanye was a psyop, and he's out there saying crazy stuff because they're going to say, oh, look, Kanye's now a crazy Christian. We've got to shut the Christians up. I think he's a psyop.
So this is something you can definitely have in case your power went off, where it also apparently includes canned meat. I think it includes canned meat too. It shows it on the picture there. This is brand new. Oh yeah. Does it include it? Yeah, it includes 24 cans of 6-hour canned meat to cook in it. Obviously, it's the winter time. A good time for a space heater, particularly in your garage. Also, you could be cooking some meat in the process.
Okay, I don't want to see you selling your barbecues.
In the membership section where I get into much more detail and I can say all the things I want to say about like the no-brainer, obvious good stuff, but some of the other stuff they're doing, which maybe isn't as obvious. And I get into actual real solutions that can solve this whole thing. This also right here is another exclusive.
Didn't he go on Joel Osteen? I'm pretty sure Kanye West went on Joel Osteen's service. Pretty sure that's right. And that says it all, guys.
This video, this one's really great as well. I get into some really interesting stuff going on in the background. But so getting back to the video. So what I wanted to get at was, let's get back to Little Nas X real quick, and then I'll get into Madonna real quickly, and then I'll get into what happened at this church and explain kind of what the devil's doing. All right. Obviously, this looks a little bit like Kanye, what's going on with Little Nas. It is curious. I think this is a strategy of the devil, by the way. I don't think this is by accident this happens. You see this with, I think, I'm just going to say it, I think Justin Bieber's an example of this as well. I think there's multiple people in this realm that do this stuff.
I mentioned Bieber before, Vance being part of the gay mafia. Remember?
Go back and forth. One day they're wearing a Marilyn Manson shirt to a Hillsong concert. That's Justin Bieber. He did that a few years ago. Next day he's a good old believer again. It's this back and forth, blurring the lines. Like, you can be for the devil and God at the same time, or like just go back and forth. It doesn't matter. This kind of thing is on purpose. He has a lot of followers. Just imagine how many ruined, of course, faith he has done as a result of billion views, promoting things like Lucifer and stuff. And then, of course, then he goes, hey, now I'm a believer, right? So is he going to then, like, try to bring a bunch of people?
Joel Osteen's dad was legit, was he, Diane? That's surprising.
To the faith and then shipwreck it after that by going back to the devil stuff. We've seen this with Kanye. He's actually done it a few times, by the way. I don't know if you knew that or not. He has actually done it a few times. I don't know what he's doing right now, if he's legit or if he's just doing once again what he did before. But He's done that stuff himself.
Wow.
And it seems to be a very a strategy of some sort. Here's something that Lil Nas X wrote. I love this constant cycle the world has with me. When I started making music, y'all told me I was just another Twitter rapper. Then I made the biggest song of all time. Y'all called me a one-hit wonder. Then I dropped one of the most streamed albums of the year with 3 to 5 top hits. So this is interesting because now he's got the cross. He says he's God's favorite here. He's talking about the album with the devil stuff on it right here, folks. Why are you bragging about that? Does that even make any sense? Of course, this one-hit wonder was the was it the old road or whatever it was where he's on the horse? How do we call the song? Where is it? It's back here somewhere. Yeah, Old Town Road. There you go. He was saying his one-hit wonder there. And then he dropped these other songs, which were the one where he was in hell and stuff. Now you're all saying my new stuff.
Mas, you know why he left nothing physical behind? Because if he did, people would worship whatever he left behind. Let's say there was a hammer from his carpenter days and we knew it was Jesus's, they would all worship the hammer. So that's why he left no writings, no nothing. That's what I think.
Not gonna do nothing. At some point, you all gotta realize I'm God's favorites. I'm gonna take a wild guess that you're probably not his favorites. Just a wild guess. At any rate, so he of course has still got his dresses going on, folks. He's got the dresses going on. Yeah, he's still doing all that. He had a wedding dress on at one thing. Okay. I don't know, man. And of course, this symbol, like I said, as well. And so you get kind of what I'm saying with Lil Nas X. To me, I'm not buying it.
No, so just called Beaver a shapeshifter. He mentioned that Beaver went to Hillsong. When he went to Hillsong in Sydney, 3 or 4 years ago, he turned into a reptilian as he's walking down a path, and the fans all screamed and freaked out. And how I knew about it, it was on our news that night, but it was done like Justin Bieber plays a joke on his fans and turns reptilian. So they made it out as a joke, but he actually, there's footage of it, as a matter of fact.
I'm not buying it. So I don't know about all you guys, but I just don't. Then you have, of course, Madonna recently. She did a concert on a moving platform, and I got to show you this video. I showed it on my other channel.
Hastily.
Let me show you this. Here we go. 1 second. Let me get it. There we go. Okay, here we go. Let's play this.
No, look at this here.
Yeah. Okay, so this is Madonna today, folks. Madonna is 65 years old. She's still trying to pretend or something that she's younger. She's dancing in some glitter suits.
Yeah.
I think she may have lost, of course, her way, folks. At this point, I don't know about you, but I don't want to.
Yeah, Susan, that church did fail. Brian Houston, he was a leader of the church, and he got thrown out for scandals. I went to Hillsong about 5 times, and the first 4 times, they were always after money, non-stop, always after money. The 5th time, the cameras were on, and they didn't even mention money. So I went nowhere near them again. Actually, I did, but that's another story.
I see grandma dancing. At least not like that. Maybe in another way,
Diane, Madonna's cheek implants, they make her look like an orangutan. Seriously. She looks bizarre.
Grandma and grandpa couple dancing. Okay, that's fine. Not like that. Okay. And of course, it had some articles coming out about this. This is ageism, folks. Madonna for dancing with a support pole during a concert. But fans pointed out the flaws of their criticism.
Man, who wants to see a wrinkly old 65-year-old dancing in cop outfits? I don't even wear singlets anymore because no one wants to look at my old man arms. That's why I wear T-shirts.
Because it was a moving stage. That's why she needed to have this pole that she had to hold on to. And that's not the reason why I'm criticizing the song. The song's just, I mean, look at that. You saw what it looked like. What is that?
We were with you when you saw the rain that wouldn't quit, when your head was in the clouds.
I'll see if I can find it,
That's
Boss.
just not the best outfit in the world. That is not. What kind of dancing is that? What kind of music is that? Ugh. And of course, she's changed drastically in the last 10 years. She doesn't look anything like she used to. 10 years ago, she looked way different than this. So clearly something's going on there, folks. And of course, she's also in the last so many years have gotten even more dark. As you can see here, she's not exactly exalting the King of Kings, as you can tell. She's doing the exact opposites. This is clearly not good what she's doing here. And she does that all the time. Somehow she's thinking she's going to stay relevant or something. I don't know what she's thinking, but it's our society. They always try to pit SEX versus God. This is how they do it. The devil is in the church and outside of it. He is the one saying SEX is bad in the church. He's the one with all the rules. The guy that gets up there with all the rules saying, these 50 rules, you can't do any of these things at all, right? Like Mark Driscoll, for example. I used to make jokes or make videos making fun of what he used to say. I mentioned in my other video how he had a guy in a bubble suit, literal bubble suit, like, you know, you can't even move other than you got your hands on the outside and you got little hands out here, you're walking like this. He had a guy come out on the stage in a bubble suit and he said, this is how you have to be with your girlfriend before marriage. And like all you can do is like shake her hand, you know, you can't even give her a hug or anything. This is the kind of stuff that is promoted as good in the church these days. While the world is saying, do whatever you want, be whatever you want, anything goes. And the church is saying, you can't do anything, nothing, you can't even give a hug. You see what I mean? The devil's on both sides. He uses them to play off each other. He pits them against each other so he can slingshot people from one side to the other. And this is what you see with Little Nas X. Do anything goes. The devil stuff, switch over to, I'm a good believer now. Then switch back over. The devil loves this stuff. The slingshot effect. Okay? This is how he works. And we call it Darwinistic Manichaeism. This is the term we coined to describe this phenomena. And he uses this all the time. This is why you get people like Jacqueline Glenn on YouTube, who once was a believer and thought you couldn't, you know, she believed all this stuff. And now she's slingshotted over, and now she's a skeptic and, you know, anything goes, do whatever you want kind of thing. This is how it works. And I'm going to explain to you how the devil uses this in the church, and you're not going to believe this. So look at this story here. I talked about this at the end of my video on my other channel. Canadian megachurch. Okay, an investigation, and you're not going to believe this, folks. 5 men in this church, 4 of them pastors, 4 pastors, all of them, you know, accused by, of course, 38 women. They're saying that they're essentially over them and were using sort of like saying, oh, you want to be a good person, right? And then like manipulating that kind of thing for SEX, okay? So this is what they were doing. And this is 4 different pastors at the same church, including 1 extra guy as well that was like working in the church. It was like 5. It was actually, I think it was over 38 women, okay? And I explained in another video how I think this is actually possible, how this happens. I'll explain sort of the mindset of what the devil has created. He's created a theology that causes essentially this hypocrisy. And I believe the King of Kings was describing it right here, this exact phenomena, and I'll explain it out. Woe unto you, hypocrites, for ye compass the sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, you make him twofold the child of hell than yourselves. So, what did Jesus used to say to these Pharisees? He said they were hypocrites, right? So, what's interesting about that is these people we're hypocrites as well. They're leaders, but they're doing these things that are wrong, right? Let me explain what's going on here. So what I think the devil does is he sets up a false paradigm where he says that there's all these rules before marriage, like 50 rules, like I mentioned about Mark Driscoll and the bubble boy, and you can't you can shake hands. That's all you can do before marriage, kind of thing, you know. All these rules they make up are not actually in the good book at all. They're just literally in their head. They make them up. They make everybody follow these rules. The problem is people don't follow them because they make this impossible standard. People become hypocrites. They start having a second life, a double-minded person. They become hypocrites because they have a secondary, secret, of course, life. They have a monster in the closet. Okay, so they say one thing. Oh, I believe that you can't do this, that, and the other. Got all these rules, but then they don't follow their own rules. Just like the King of Kings said to these people, you make all these rules, but you won't lift one finger to follow them. Same exact idea. And so what happens is because they're hypocritical, because they have this monster in the closet where they're double-minded, they say one thing and then they do the opposite, then they have to come up with a theology to explain away the monster in the closet so that they feel justified. So there is actually a theology out there that does this. I can't stop sinning. I sin every day. I can't stop. It's okay though. I'm still saved. Doesn't matter. And where does this theology come from? It says you're totally depraved. You can't stop. You can't help yourself. You can't stop it. But in reality, the reason why this is the case is because the standard is not correct. It's an impossible standard that the devil has convinced believers to think is God's standard, and then they can't meet the standard, so then they become hypocrites, double-minded. They got the monster in the closet. The monster keeps growing bigger and bigger. Eventually, the monster gets out of the closet, and then this happens right here. This is what's going on. And because these people know that they're hypocrites, they start justifying, well, it doesn't matter if I do wrong. I can just do whatever I want. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So then they start doing it on purpose. And then they're like, well, I don't want to lose my job.
I know Justin Trudeau's Fidel Castro's son. I don't know he's a daughter, though. I haven't checked that out. But I do know he's his so-called, or not so-called, he looks like Fidel Castro.
This really nice paying job as a minister, so I'll just stay here. You see what I'm getting at now? This is how they get that way. And this is set up by the devil so that no fun in the church, you do whatever you want outside of it. So he sets up both standards so he can slingshot people from one side to the other. We came up with a term to describe this called Darwinistic Manichaeism. Okay? And actually, a good example of this is literally the Pharisees and Sadducees. Because the Sadducees were sort of like the skeptics. They were like, they didn't have a standard. Well, we don't got any rules. And then the Pharisees had all the bazillions of rules. So it's always been around. They've had this dynamic for a long time. And so what I'm saying is that this is a false standard that they have, and that's why they can't achieve to follow that standard. And then that's why they become hypocrites and double-minded. And this is also to get people out of the church. You make an impossible standard, they're like, that's ridiculous, and then they don't want to be part of it. And this is what happens. And then, so what's interesting is also there's a verse that describes these people. These 5 ministers that were caught doing this, they had a rule they broke in the church. It was a behavior rule, SEX based, or any type of, it was in the realm of being good behavior. Okay. No physical, of course, contact, verbalization of SEX type of expression, to control other people that are less powerful than you, to control others below you. There's actually a verse that describes this exact phenomena in the good book itself, in Corinthians, but almost no one knows this because it's mistranslated. And this is why I think it's so important to have things translated correctly and not to go off traditions of men. Again, if you go to the old KJV, it has it correct. Abusers of themselves with mankind.
Always got to go to the KJV.
It's referring to people in higher positions taking advantage of those below them. Exactly what these ministers did. They are being described perfectly by this verse. However, modern translations have decided, due to cultural debates, we'll just call it this instead. But it's actually referring to those in higher positions doing things, of course, to those in lower positions. That's exactly the real meaning if you look at the ancient word and you understand, even if you look at secular sources, this is how it was used. But for some reason, they like to theologize words and convert and slant these words to whatever agenda or whatever they want them to believe they want it to say. So this is what ends up happening. This is why we get these mistranslations, is because someone has some opinion and they put it right in the text when they translate it, rather than translating it exactly as it was originally written, as we see in the King James here. Perfect. That's the perfect translation right there, and it's describing what these guys were doing to a T. Okay, this is what I'm trying to get at. So it's interesting how this stuff happens. And again, what I'm saying, with all these ridiculous standards, you have people like Girl Defined here on YouTube, where they won't even let their husbands go to a beach because they might see women, you know, in, of course, suits, bathing suits, right? They can't have that happening, right? What was interesting, though, is I think one of these two ladies is actually starting to open up and realize where she's wrong, because recently on her Instagram, she started putting out some things that apparently her followers are not really liking so much. She's talking positive about sex now that she's married, and she's like trying to help people out in this realm. But of course, this is not something you talk about in church, because the devil set the standard up, and it's all wrong. You can't talk about it. It's all bad. You're having fun? It's wrong. No fun. No fun for you. Okay, that's how it works, right? Devil standard. No fun. You having fun? You're a believer? That's bad. Okay? And of course, so the whole entire idea is that then the devil gets to have all of it. He gets all the fun on his side, and then God has none on his side, because the devil set up both sides. That's how it works. And no one can understand this. But it makes perfect sense if you look at the good book, because who was the King of Kings dealing with when he walked here?
Okay, guys, I'm out. It's clearing up. I won't bother refocusing it. See you tomorrow, guys. I might look into that Dana Coverstone. I might check out him tomorrow, because he's getting a lot of attention with his dreams. Okay, guys, God bless.